$2 apart. Two.
I mod up on your emotion, stand and face Jerusalem. Blessing of the Sabbath. Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Betonawa, Ashabath, Bashalawam, Fawada, Aman. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the Sabbath in peace. Thank you, so be it. I am a Akkad, Psalms 121. Anya, Harayim, Ayanyam, Harayim, Ayan, Yabu'a, Isaiah, Yabu'a, Mayahawa, Shaisha, Shamayim, Wa'aratiza, La'a, Yanathan, Lamawat, Regalia, Yala'a, Yanawam, Shashamarka, Hanan, La'a, Yanawam, Wala'a, Yayasham, Shashwama, Yashurala, Yahawah, Shemaya, Yahawah, Tazayim, I, Ya, Yamin, Yawamam, Hashemash, La'a, Hakaya, Wayara, La'a, Balayala, Yahawah, Yashamaya, Makom, Ra, Yashamar, Napasha, Yahawah, Yashamar, Hawalaka, Wabawaya, Ma'aitha, I will Basham, Yahawah, Kawada, One.
Psalm 121, a song. I will lift up my eyes and with my help. My help comes from the Lord which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. Thy shield upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and forevermore. Amen.
Amen. Shema Yashra'el, hear, O Israel. Shema Yashra'el, Yahweh, Yahweh, Shema Yashra'el, Yahweh, Yahweh, Shema Yahweh,
Deuteronomy 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Amen.
Amen. Top like the Lord's Prayer. Abiyanawa, Shabashimon, Kodash, Hayah, Shankar, Yahweh, Malakaka, Nava'an, Ratazawanda, Hayah, Aisha, Rataza, Khan, Bashimai, Atanawa, Wakam, Jawam, Za, Wasalakon, Kabawak, Kasalakon, Kabawak, Wala'a, Habiyana, O, Nisayan, Abo, Hawashina, Maran, Kiyah, Lakam, Hamalak, Waha'ala, Watapara, Ma'ayla, Aman.
Luke chapter 11, verse 2. He said unto him, when you pray, say, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so on earth. Give us day by day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins. We also forgive everyone that forgives to us, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Amen. Ha'aishara, Tazwa, 10 Commandments. La'ah, Yahaya, Lakah, Alahayim, Lakayim, Alpanyah, La'ah, Laisha, Lakah, Paso, Wala'ah, La'ibadam, La'ah, Alakwaka, Shamwa, Yahawah, Alahayaka, Lashua, Zakar, Ah, Hayawam, Hashabah, La'akudah, Kabad, Abyakar, La'amakar, La'ah, Daratazak, La'ah, Fana'ah, La'ah, Faganah, La'ah, Thainah, Shakur, La'ah, Thakamad, Ko, Asherah, Lara'ayaka, Aman.
Deuteronomy 5 and 7. Thou shalt not other gods before me. Thou shalt not make any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the waters beneath the earth. Thou shalt not bow thyself unto them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation and the eighth, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord upholds him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Keep the Sabbath day to sanctify it as the Lord thy God commanded thee. 6 days thou shalt labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thine ox, nor thine ass, nor any of thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates, that thy manservant and thy maidservant may rest as well as thou. And remember that thou wast a servant in the land of Egypt, and that the Lord thy God brought thee out thence through a mighty hand and by a stretched out arm. Therefore the Lord thy God commanded thee to keep the Sabbath day. Honor thy father and thy mother as the Lord thy God commanded thee, that thy days may be prolonged, and that it may go well with thee in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, neither shalt thou commit adultery, neither shalt thou steal, neither shalt thou bear false witness against thy neighbor, neither shalt thou desire thy neighbor's wife, neither shalt thou covet thy neighbor's house, his field, or his manservant, or his maidservant, his ox, or his ass, or anything that is thy neighbor. Amen.
Aman. Shabbat, be seated. Barak Yahweh, Bashem Yahweh Shah, Shirah, Lanawa, Arya, Gotham, Wada Aman, La Yahweh, Bashem Yahweh Shah, Haf, Yashkala. English translation. Blessed are Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shah that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shah with Israel. Madra Rosalind, stand and face Jerusalem. Opening prayers. Barakah Yahweh, Haggadah, Rakuam, Abiyah, Wanara'a, Aliyawan, Malak, Shel, Shemayim, Wa'arapha, Makol, Tabarim, Kayayim, Wagam, Amashiach, Mayahawa, Arawana, Ahabna, Hapala, Yawaita, Hawashah, Zakarna, Yahweh, Baratasa 1, Anka, Izana, Bana, Wasa, Yasha'ala, O, Nanawa, Yamyan, Aitha, Kayawamyam, Makodam, Baba Kushana, Shalat, Mayaka'ala, Wahatazawadak, Alahayam, La, Magunnawa, Rapanawa, Washamar, Alnawa, Baikur, Shalat, Aroka, Shal, Yahawashai, Lanawa, Alamanawa, Rabium, Kakama, Tabawana, Wada'ith, Shal, Debarka, Ba'ashem, Yahawashai, Thuwada, Yad, Baiwalam, Amun. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth, and all things living. And also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, the wonderful counselor, Yahweh Shai. Remember us, Yahweh, favorably your people Israel. Help us build and gather Israel. Most high, we beg you, right now like the days of old. Please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. Mainly send the spirit of Yahweh Shai to us to teach us much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you always and forever, so be it. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the law. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Hathalanawa, Hathawara. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us light to see. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Hathalanawa, Awar, Lara'awat. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the ram's horn to call the people. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Hathalanawa, Koran, Hayo, Lakorah, Ha'aim. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the olive oil to anoint Israel. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Hathalanawa, Hasheman, Zayath, Lamashak, Yasha'ala. Shabbat, BC. All right, Shalom, Shalom. Peace and blessings to the brothers and sisters in the nation of Israel. Shalom, Yasha'Allah, Ashar Shabbat, happy Sabbath on the Lord's seventh day. Most High as well. Everyone's in good spirits, mentally, spiritually, physically as well. Day of rest to set aside all your worldly pleasures, your endeavors, labors to come before the Lord pardon me, on the Lord's day to come and break bread spiritually, to eat of this word, and to sustain ourselves for the upcoming days, months, and years as we endure, like it tells us in Matthew 24:13, to the time Yahweh Shah comes or the time we give up our spirit. And this is one of those requirements that we come before the Lord as it is prescribed in Exodus, the 20th chapter and the 8th verse on the Sabbath day. Right. So we do this as Israelites, those of us whose ancestors fit the descriptions, fit the prophecies, the curses that you read about in the Bible, in the Old Testament, as well as the New Testament, as well as in the hidden books known as the Apocrypha. All of our history, legacy is found in those scriptures. Who was the they? Those whose ancestors on their father's side, dating back at least 3 to 4 generations, if you can trace your tree, your family tree, or your lineage, whose indigenous parents were here in the Americas, right? Falsely known as the so-called Native American Indians, the Seminole Indians, falsely known as the Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Taino, Arawak Indians, so-called Mexicans, those who were scattered throughout the Caribbean, right? Throughout the different islands that's there, all down in South America. If your ancestors on your father's side, the patriarchal side, you come from out of those lineages, and you come from that history. That history is a history that was prophesied about the nation of Israel, right? And how we would come over in these last days and be in these different lands and in these different regions, right? So that's a portion of the 12 lost tribes. Then you have those who came over later on due to the transatlantic slave trade, so-called Negroes, so-called West Indians, so-called Haitians, right? The Negroid tribe, as they called us. If your ancestors came and fit that description, that history, that legacy, that is also the prophecies and the curses that fell upon our ancestors for breaking the laws and the commandments of the Most High. And that would be the judgment or the fate of our people. The Bible tells us in Deuteronomy 20 chapter that it would be a sign upon us forever throughout our generations. So we now are able to trace who we are, whereas today, we're known by colors, or we're known by other people's nationalities to now label us as coming out of their loins, where they take our nationality and identity and give us theirs. So we have the scriptures to now prove not only who we are, but we could also prove who everyone else is. That's the beauty of the Bible. It's just not something that is only specific to one thing. It encompasses everything, right? All world events, all nations, everything is now being able to be found in the Bible. And the Most High has raised up his prophets, his true servants that come out of the nation of Israel. I think when you read, I think it's Ezekiel, the 38th chapter and the 17th verse, right? I think it's Ezekiel 38 and verse 17, right? It says, "Thus saith the Lord God, art thou he of whom I have spoken in old time by my servants, the prophets of Israel?" So the servants or the prophets of the nation of Israel have them. So the servants or the prophets have to come out of the nation of Israel through the loins of their fathers. Any of those who now are known as so-called Black Americans, so-called Haitian, so-called Puerto Rican, so-called Brazilian, so-called Colombian, all of those who now fit those descriptions on the 12 tribes line, those are the servants and the prophets of the Most High. You can't be Arabic, or you can't be Caucasian, you can't be Chinese, because the Bible itself tells us who the true prophets or servants are. It says the same thing in Romans, the 9th chapter and the 4th verse, right? Israelites are the servants of the Most High God, and it is bestowed upon us to go out and preach the good news, also known as the gospel, to the 12 tribes, that our redemption is soon to come, right? There's a lot of atrocities that are still happening to our people to this day, right? Throughout the various cities throughout so-called America, same thing throughout the rest of the cities throughout the world where we're scattered. We're still going through the plagues and the curses of the Most High that he's allowing the other nations to impute upon us. So we are not done yet. Although the Most High tells us in Lamentations that he is now turning the script to Esau or to Edom, right? Let me get that real quick. Lamentations chapter, I think it's 4. Lamentations chapter 4 and verse I'm gonna read verse 21. Oh, shalom. Lamentations 4 and 21. It says, "Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, that dwellest in the land of Uz. The cup also, the cup of judgment, which is speaking about, also shall pass through unto thee. Thou shalt be drunken and shall make thyself naked," right? Meaning making yourself naked to your sins, exposed, right? That's like someone who is, the scripture says, he's going to lift up thy skirt. So it's like when a woman, wind blows and the skirt blows up and her undergarments are showing and she's embarrassed. That's the same context behind as far as from making yourself naked. You're exposed to your sins or your transgressions, right? It says in verse 22, "The punishment of thine iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion." Meaning, it's not to say that once you read this verse, there's no more judgment. There shouldn't be any more atrocities happening. It means that after this captivity, there's no more. There's nothing else to follow. There's no more judgments that's going to happen to the nation of Israel that's going to lead us back to another captivity. That has been accomplished. It says, "He will no more carry thee away into captivity. He will visit thine iniquity, O daughter of Edom," right? So Edom is a nation that's ruling now. So this is the prophecy that the Lord will then discover their iniquity and visit their iniquity, right? And it says, "He will discover thy sins." So now the world is going to observe and see the sins of Edom. That's what's going on right now. That's what's transpiring by all the different events and things that's happening in the earth. Some of them are covert, where you may not realize that they have done something undermined or underhandedly to another nation or to a people, but the Most High is now discovering those sins, and now it's coming out, right? By the use of the same medium that we have with social media that can be used for all kind of wickedness, the Most High is also going to allow the truth to come out for exposing those transgressions through these same venues. You may not see it on CNN or you may not see it on ABC, but there's other venues and other outlets that's now going to expose these things. You may see them yourself firsthand, right? You may get certain knowledge from different literature or texts, but the Most High is going to put the spirit and the vibration out there that these things now are going to be exposed. So this is now behooves us, those who come out of that line, to now get this knowledge, get this discipline, and try to keep these commandments, because this is going to be your salvation. This is what's going to get you over. You may not know every breakdown, every prophecy, every precept, but if you are astute and trying to keep the commandments as best as you can, as the days and weeks move on, that's going to allow wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to begin to increase and abound in your spirit. That's the bottom line. You may not get the feast breakdown. You may not get the 70 day, right, or the 70 weeks out of Daniel, but understanding dietary laws, ceremonial laws, moral and civil is going to still sustain you to get to those points if the Lord so be that you should get that understanding. That's the foundation. That's the base. So that's why we come, right? And we use these outlets. Blessings to all the other camps that's out there, all the other outlets, brothers and sisters that's doing this work. We say peace and shalom to you too. We're not seclusive where we're the only ones who have this truth. There's a lot of other great brothers, great kings and queens that's out there doing this work, and we salute them as well. I want to say shalom to a warrior, shalom to Lab Tawab, shalom Yahweh Kanuns in the school, shalom Manashah, Nabiyah, shalom Andrea Watson, shalom Elder Zaquan, shalom Listen with Your Mind. I'm not sure who that is. I'm pretty sure I probably don't know his Hebrew name, but shalom Aqua Raven, shalom Brother Craig Evers. Is that right? Ratazawan? Shalom Ratazawan. Ratazayan. All right. Peace and blessings to everybody that's logged in, those who's logged in on the teleconference line as well, listening in. Shalom, shalom. I am Kahan Samat, privileged, honored. The Most High has allowed me and given me the privilege to come and do these Sabbath services, to teach and bestow upon me this knowledge that I can give back. Freely it was given to me, freely it shall be now dispersed to everyone who is in listening ear. All right. So for today's Sabbath service lesson, we're going to be in the Old Testament, 1 First Kings chapters 9 and 10. We're going to be finishing up with King Solomon and his building of the temple, and then we're going to get into his wisdom and visitors that are going to come and see him after he's completed his building and the different knowledges that he displayed. What happened?
Yeah.
For which one?
No, I was looking for Byron. In the book.
All right. So this is First Kings. Many of them in there. Probably looking for a specific one. I know I do it sometimes. First Kings chapter 9 and verse 1. So First Kings chapter 9 and verse 1, and it reads, it says, and it came to pass when Solomon had finished the building of the house of the Lord and the king's house, and all Solomon's desire, which he was pleased to do, right? So you write down First Kings 6:38, right? Tells you that he finished the temple of the Most High in 7 years. Again, that's First Kings 6:38. Tells us that he finished the temple in 7 years. Started in the 4th year, he completed it in the 11th year, right? So 7 years building it. And then when you read First Kings 7 and 1, tells you that it took 13 years to build his house, right? And all the things that made up his house, right? Because you know there's different porches, different areas. It took him 13 years. So it was 20 years in total in him building those different buildings and structures, right? And it was magnificent in its glory at the time that it stood. You know, it's not present anymore, but it was world renowned at the time when the Most High allowed Solomon to build that temple as well as his own quarters. So again, that's First Kings 6:38, First Kings 7 and 1. It says in verse 2 that the Lord appeared to Solomon the second time as he had appeared unto him at Gibeon. So remembering back in First Kings, the 3rd chapter, the Most High had appeared to Solomon in a dream, right? Let me go to that real quick. First Kings chapter 3. First Kings chapter 3 and 4. So this is pretty much a recap, right? It says, and Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of David his father. Only he sacrificed and burnt incense in high places. And the king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was the great high place, 1,000 burnt offerings that Solomon offered upon the altar. In Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and Yahweh said, ask what I shall give thee. So this is that visitation that we're reading about in the 9th chapter, where the Lord is now going to appear to Solomon the second time in Gibeon. First time is when he went to go do the sacrifices, and the Lord appeared to him in a dream, asked his request, kind of like what you see in certain movies. You get 3 wishes or whatever. Solomon was granted a petition of the Lord of what his desire was. His desire was wisdom, right? He wanted to be able to rule the Lord's flock, right? Not money, not women, not this, right? He wanted to be able to rule and govern over the nation of Israel. And to do that, you need to have wisdom. So that's what the Lord granted Solomon, exceeding wisdom far beyond anyone else during that time, right? So this is now him coming in the second time. So we're back at First Kings now, 9 and 3. So First Kings 9 and 3, it says, and the Lord said unto him, I have heard thy prayer and thy supplication that thou hast made before me. I have hallowed this house which thou hast built, to put my name there forever, and mine eyes and mine heart shall be there perpetually. And if thou wilt walk before me as David thy father walked in integrity of heart and uprightness, to do according to all that I have commanded thee, and will keep my statutes and my judgments. So the same thing that was bestowed upon David is the same thing that is now being bestowed upon Solomon. It's the same thing that's bestowed upon all of us, right? Go to Deuteronomy chapter 10. Kahan Manashah, that Deuteronomy 10 and 12.
Deuteronomy chapter 10 and verse 12. And now, Israel, what do the Lord thy God require of thee? But to fear the Lord thy God and walk in all his ways, and to love him, and to serve the Lord thy God with all thy heart and all thy soul.
Keep reading.
To keep the commandments of the Lord and his statute, which I command thee this day for thy good.
Right. So it's a question mark at the end, but it's a rhetorical question mark, right? Because that's what we know that we're supposed to do, right? The Most High is asking, what is required of you, Israel, to do such and such and such and such with a question mark? Of course, the answer is conf, or yes, right? We're going to serve the Most High with all our heart, mind, and soul, right? To do his commandments. So the same thing that now the Most High is speaking to Solomon about, this is that he's going to accept him and accept the house that he dedicated to him if he walks in the same vibration as King David, right? Now, remembering that King David also had flaws, but the Most High did not look at David's flaw as a, something to just set aside and say, well, he's wicked and I'm getting rid of him. David is now in the spirit world, right? At this point that he's speaking to Solomon. But one of the key things that I took out of that verse, he says that he walks with integrity of heart, right? You may be able to sin or fall short or transgress here and there, but you got to have integrity to be able to acknowledge and understand that you have transgressed the Most High and then go and repent. Sometimes when pride sets in, you may not want to do those things. You think that you are now capable and able of doing your own thing where you don't have to come and rely on the Lord. You don't have to now always come and ask for forgiveness for certain things or question the Most High's judgment when the judgment falls upon you because you've done sins. When David received his judgment, he didn't question the Most High. He wasn't angry at the Lord. He didn't say, well, I'm going to step back from the Lord because the Lord is judging me. He knew he messed up and he accepted that, right? So when correction comes, and in any form or fashion, it could be the Most High sending an angel, it could be in a dream like the Lord is doing with Solomon, it could be a brother, it could be a sister, right? If they come and they give you words of wisdom or correction, you have to accept it if it's truthful, right? So now when the Lord does that to certain individuals, we want to make sure that we walk in that same integrity of heart, that we don't get high-minded because I've been in this truth for 10 years or I've been in this before, the Most High working with me, man. I done. No, Most High can take you out if you have that spirit, then begin to turn, do a 180. So that's key here as far as for what was shown now to all Israel. It's the same thing that's shown to David. And now Solomon is being reminded of the same thing, right? One law for everybody, whether you are Israelite, a regular Israelite, a Levite priest, a king, right? Whether you're Issacharite, Benjamite, everyone is following the same law, and we're holding each other to the same standard. I may not be the king. He may be the king, but I'm going to look and hold him to the standard that the Most High has given him. And he goes off, somebody in line has to go and check him. Might be the priest. The priest going to have to go. May not be that other brother over there because he may not be able to go and speak to the king in that manner. But because everybody should hold each other accountable, it now needs to be the one that's close to the king or someone who's in that line to be able to go and check him, right? So let's go back to 1 Kings chapter 9. I'm going to read verse 3 again. It says, and Yahweh said unto him, I have heard thy prayer and thy supplication that thou hast made before me. I have hallowed this house which thou hast built, to put my name there forever, and mine eyes and mine heart shall be there perpetually. Now, we know that the house is not standing anymore, right? It's not there anymore. So this can't be so much literal that the Most High is going to put his name there and his eyes is going to be always there, because we know during the times of 70 AD, right, when Titus and Vespasian came in, they destroyed it. And the only thing that was left surrounding where the temple actually stood on Mount Moriah is what King Herod and them added as an injunction to the temple, which is that wall and all the different areas and courts outside of the temple. That is standing there. That was not a part of the original temple. It got destroyed, right? Yahushua said that it was going to be no stone left upon another, right? So this was now showing that the Most High just loved what Solomon dedicated to him as far as for the house, and he was going to put his name there, and it was never going to be given to someone else or anything else. It was going to stay within the nation of Israel. And in time, right? In time, later on, when we get back into the kingdom, we're going to build up and rebuild another temple like we've done throughout the ages, right? When the temple was first destroyed during the times of the Babylonians, right? We read in the Apocrypha and we read during the times of Nehemiah and Ezra that Ezra and Nehemiah and the rest of them went, Zerubbabel went and rebuilt the temple according to this original structure, right? And then what happened? Then Solomon's temple now was re-erected as being that. So when you read in the New Testament about the temple that's there during the time of Yahushua, it was Ezra's temple that was rebuilt or rededicated to the Most High because Solomon's got destroyed by the Babylonians. All right. So that's probably a good class to kind of go through that that timeline. Reading verse 4 again. And if thou wilt walk before me as David thy father walked, in integrity of heart, honesty, and to be uprightness, to do according to all that I have commanded thee, and I will keep my statutes and my judgments, then will I establish the throne of thy kingdom upon Israel forever, as I promised to David thy father, saying, there shall not fail thee a man upon the throne of Israel. Go to Psalm chapter 132. Psalms chapter 132 and verse 10.
Cut the virgin birth doctrine.
Psalm 132 and verse 10. But thy servant David say, turn not away the face of thy anointed. The Lord has sworn in truth unto David, he would not turn from it. Of the fruit thy body will I sit upon thy throne.
Verse 12.
If thy children will keep my covenant and my testimony that I shall teach them, their children shall also be sit upon thy throne forevermore.
Right. So this is again the agreement that the Most High made with David, right? If he was to follow and not turn his face away from this covenant, that his loin, the fruit from his loins, will sit upon the throne forevermore, right? So Khan Nabiyah just alluded to it. This is another good precept to use for the quote-unquote so-called virgin birth doctrine, meaning that Mary, his mother, never was impregnated by a man to now deliver the baby Yahushua or Jesus. Because here it says that through the fruit of David's loins, meaning through his seed, the man's sperm is the seed. It has to impregnate a woman, and then that woman would nurture the baby in her womb and deliver, and it will continue on down the line. So Christ sitting on the throne in his glory, like it tells you in Daniel's, the 7th chapter, he has to come out of the loins or out of the genealogy of King David by different men. That's why you have Matthew's, the 1st chapter, that goes through the genealogy of Yahushua or Jesus Christ, showing you all the men that were his predecessors, all the men that were his grandparents, until it got to Joseph. Joseph was a descendant of David, coming from out of the loins of the genealogy. So this is a good precept to also go, of the fruit of thy body will I set upon thy throne. So every king from the nation of Israel, from David on, has to come out of those loins, right? After David, it was Solomon, right? After Solomon, it was Rehoboam, and so forth and so on. It can't be somebody else. It can't be that it was a miraculous thing, because if it was a miraculous thing, not taking away that the Most High couldn't do it that way, but the Most High's word can't go out void. If this is what he said, it has to be done, right? So, reading on, if thy children will keep my covenant and my testimony that I shall teach them, their children shall also sit upon thy throne forevermore. So again, that was another stipulation that we as a people would have to continue and keep the covenant, keep those commandments. But as we read the Old Testament, we see during the time of Jeremiah, what happened? We didn't keep them. And the Most High brought in the Babylonians. And since the time of the Babylonians, we never had a king to sit back on the throne. They have all stopped. Not until Yahushua comes again in the future will we have someone be able to sit upon the throne who still comes from the loins of David, right? So again, this is the covenant and the promise that the Lord made with his father David that now also is going on to him, right? It's succeeding to him as well. So now let's go back to 1 Kings chapter 9. Read verse 5 again. It says, then I will establish the throne of thy kingdom upon Israel forever, as I promised to David thy father, saying, there shall not fail thee a man upon the throne of Israel. But if ye shall at all turn from following me, ye or your children, and will not keep my commandments and my statutes, which I have set before you, but go and serve other gods and worship them, then will I cut off Israel out of the land which I have given them, and this house which I have hallowed for my name, I will cast out of my sight, and Israel shall be a proverb and a byword among all people. Right? So there you go. That was a judgment. That's why the temple is not there anymore. That's why the nation of Israel is not in their homeland, inheriting the land right now, because we did not keep the commandments. And the curse or the judgment of the Most High took place, right? He ruled us out of the land. Go to Deuteronomy chapter 28. You can link this, what we just read in verse 7, with this. Deuteronomy 28 and 68. Because it said back in 7, then will I cut off Israel out of the land which I have given them, right? So Deuteronomy 28:68, it says, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, and we know that to be the cargo slave ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. So all the prophecies and events that would happen once we got on those ships and once we landed to the places that we were going to embark upon. It says, thou shalt see it no more again. The it there is the land that we're reading about in 1 Kings 9 and 7, right? He was going to cut us out of the land. So we're not going to see it as a nation anymore. So from the time that happened, we have been dispersed throughout the four corners of the earth, right? This was part of the curse that the Lord is now reminding Solomon about, that we would not be in the land again. Now, when you jump up to verse, go up to verse, give me 1 second. Where is it? Because it says the same thing about Proverbs 37. Verse 37, it says, and thou shalt become an astonishment and a proverb and a byword among all nations whither the Lord shall lead thee. Same thing we're reading here in 1 Kings 9. And Israel shall be a proverb and a byword among all people. So now the slander, all the different types of names and slander that would be associated to us, right? The different types of treatment that we would have to go and how people would now be astonished at this being the Lord's chosen people. Look how they act. Look at the condition that they in, right? Giving us all types of treatments that's not becoming of a human, right? You wouldn't do that to a person, what they do to us. But now we are becoming the astonishment throughout the four corners. Specifically here in the Americas, right? Specifically even North America, but not to say that it's not happening all throughout the earth. So the Lord's curse that he gave Moses to give to the children of Israel is the same thing that's being reminded of to King Solomon that's ruling and governing over the nation as well. Go to Psalms chapter 44. Psalms 44. I know I ended on 68, but I only wanted to get we shall not see it no more again, as far as for us being taken out of the land. Psalms 44 and verse 8. Psalms 44 and 8. And it reads, it says, "In God we boast all the day long and praise thy name forever. But thou hast cast off and put us to shame, and goest not forth with our armies. Thou makest us to turn back from the enemy, and they which hate us spoil for themselves. Thou hast given us like sheep appointed for meat, and hast scattered us among the heathen. Thou sellest thy people for naught, and dost not increase thy wealth by their price. Thou makest us a reproach to our neighbors, a scorn and a derision to them that are round about us. Thou makest us a byword among the heathen, a shaking of the head among the people," right? So this is what the curse of the judgment of the Lord is for us. They shake their head at us. Look at these guys. Look at how they act. Look at them out in the streets. Look what they do to themselves. He don't even want to take a job. He lazy. Look what she doing, twerking like that on TV. Look at all these things. And we have become an astonishment, right? Because of the conditions that we have been put in, look at how we act with no knowledge of who we are, right? Hosea 4 and 6. So we don't have that to fall back on. It says, even in the worst conditions, this is how we're supposed to uphold the standard. But they removed that from us because that was a curse from the Lord, that we wouldn't know our heritage. We didn't know our ancestors. We didn't know our God. That's Jeremiah 17 and 4. We discontinued from our heritage that we once knew. So now once we're given all kind of other ideologies and philosophies and doctrines, we're acting like wild animals out there in the world. And the Lord has made us a byword among the heathen. Those who are supposed to be beneath us, and now the Lord has raised them above us. Now look how they're speaking down to us.
You know, read those references and links.
The ones that I read, Deuteronomy chapter 28, 68, and then also verse 37. And I'm at Psalms 44, verses 8 down to 14.
You get a reference for Jeremiah.
Oh, Hosea 4, 6, yeah. All right, let's go back. You can read the rest of that. It goes into the vibration of how the Lord, the curse or the judgment that has come upon us as a people, fulfilled itself after we continually broke the agreement. So back in verse 7 again, 1 Kings chapter 9, it says, "Then will I cut off Israel out of the land which I have given them, and this house which I have hallowed for my name I will cast out of my sight, and Israel shall be a proverb and a byword among all people. And at this house which is high, everyone that passeth by it shall be astonished and shall hiss, and they shall say, What hath the Lord done? Why hath the Lord done thus unto this land and to this house?" Right? So even a house that was just dedicated, the Most High said that he will allow someone to come and destroy it. Right? So we mentioned that in 586 BC, when the Babylonians came, they destroyed the temple. Esau was there as well, saying, "Burn it, destroy it, raise it to the ground," meaning level it out. Ezra came and rebuilt it. But even Ezra's temple that was rebuilt in the future later on would get destroyed. Go to the book of Mark. Go to the book of Mark, chapter 13. Mark chapter 13. and verse 1. Say again. Verse 7. And now I read verse 8. 1 Kings chapter 9 and 8. So now we have Mark chapter 13 and verse 1. Somebody can read that.
Mark chapter 13, verse 1. As he went out of the temple, one of his disciples said unto him, Master, see what manner of stones and what buildings are here.
So hold that. Read that again.
And as he went out of the temple, one of his disciples said unto him, Master, see what manner of stones and what buildings are here.
Hold that. Manashah, if you can get St. John 2 and 20. Because this building that we're talking about is what Herod and them built. And it's going to tell you how long it took for them to add on to what Ezra built as it pertains to the temple of the Most High. We just read it took 7 years for Solomon to build the temple of the Most High. Now, let's read St. John chapter 2 and verse 20.
St. John chapter 2 and verse 20. Then said the Jews, 46 years was this temple and building, and wilt thou read up in 3 days?
Right. So Yahweh was speaking about his sacrifice for the nation of Israel, right? Him being crucified. He would be in the earth. But they thought when he was speaking about the temple, he was talking about the actual building, the actual structure. But it says it took them 46 years to go and build the temple that they was going in and out of during the time of Yahushua, right? So from Ezra's time up to Herod, the temple was still there, and they added on and made it vainglorious. 46 years. So you can imagine what that looked like back then, right? But now, 46 years. Now let's go back to Mark chapter 13 and verse 2.
Mark 13 and 2. And Jesus answering said unto him, Seest thou these great buildings? There shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down.
Right. So he was going into the prophecy about what the Romans were coming to do, that they would come and destroy the temple. You see all these buildings, plural, right? Because they built different structures that was amongst that whole area, right? That whole palace grounds, right? It was different areas that was there. So Yahweh looked at it with the disciples, like, y'all see all these buildings around here? There ain't gonna be one stone left upon another. I don't care that it took 46 years. The Most High gonna have the Romans come and destroy it all, right? So like we read during Solomon's time, as far as for the temple, yes, the Most High would put his name there. Yes, the Most High would accept it as a place of worship and sacrifice. But doesn't matter. If y'all don't want to follow my way, I don't care about that building. It's gonna get destroyed. If y'all don't want to keep my commandments, the land that I gave you as the promised land, I'm taking you out and I'm putting bastards in the land, right? That's what it tells you when you read, I forget the scripture. It says, and a bastard shall dwell in Ashdod. That's what you have right now today. In the land of the city of Ashdod, it's a bastard there, meaning a people that the Most High is not the father of. A people that the Most High does not covet to say that that's his own. He put others in the land, and these others are destroying the land, defiling the land, warring in the land right now, doing all kind of things, but that's fulfilling the Lord's will. All right, you got that verse? Read that, Con.
Zechariah 9 and 6. And a bastard shall dwell in Ashdod, and I will cut off the pride of the Philistines.
Right. It says, and a bastard shall dwell in Ashdod, which is who's dwelling there now, and I will cut the pride off of the Philistine. Same thing that you have Philistine in ancient times is like Palestine today, right? Palestine. So those two people, those two nations are in the land thinking that they have rights to the land, fighting amongst themselves for a land that's not theirs, right? The land is really Israel's, right? The real one. 12 tribes, so-called Negroes, Hispanics, Puerto Ricans.
It's Israel, but then switch to A and E.
Right.
Israel.
But the Philistines are not.
You're right, the Philistines, but keep in mind, the Lord does things in allegories. When you read in Isaiah the 14th chapter, right? When you read Isaiah the 14th chapter, I'm going to break for, he's going to cause me to break real quick because I want to go into this. Go to Isaiah chapter 14 real quick. Because they're the ones that's in the land where the Philistines used to dwell at. Now they have taken that right. Same thing what Esau does, right? Go to Isaiah chapter 14. And I'm going to start at 25. This is the precursor to what I wanted to get into next week's class, but because you had that confused face. Wait a minute. Isaiah 14:25. Gun. So now when you read Isaiah the 14th chapter, for those who may be new and we haven't gone through this with you in detail, this chapter, one of the main verses that's in this chapter is verse 12, because it speaks about Lucifer. Most times we have been taught in mainstream churches that Lucifer is talking about Satan, the devil, right? But it's not talking about the actual spirit of Satan. It's talking about those who are his people, his angels, talking about Esau, those who are ruling. It may sound confusing right now. Write it down. Just write the note. Mark was talking about Lucifer being Satan, not being Satan. He's bugging out. Yeah, that white. I don't know what he's talking about. Write it down. We will go through it in detail, right? This is for those who understand those first 15 or 18 verses. We'll come back to that later on in class. But for this brother here, we're in Isaiah 14:25, right? It says that I will break the Assyrian in my land, and upon my mountains tread them underfoot. Now the Lord speaks in allegories, because what happened to the northern kingdom when they went into captivity? When the Assyrian captivity happened, what transpired? The northern kingdom, the 10 tribes, they got taken out of the land, and what happened?
They were doing after other gods, right?
But what happened to the land? What did they put in their place?
Last Saturday we talked about this. Showed the map, everything.
Mm-hmm.
On the map.
When the children of the northern kingdom went into captivity, Salmanasseh and them, the Lord allowed them to remove the children of Israel out of the land. And then what did they do? They put imposters in the land. So other people came in the land that was not the real people. Same thing that's going on now. There are people in the land that's not the real people. Hence why when you read in Matthew, the 10th chapter, Christ said, go not into the way of Samaritans. Don't enter in there, because that's not where your people at. It's imposters all throughout the land. So the Lord has now set up a people that has now placed imposters all throughout the land. They're not the real people, right? We can go into all how it happened starting in like 1912 or something like that, all the way up to 1948. But I don't want to go too far deep. It says that I will break the Assyrian in my land, and upon my mountains tread him underfoot. Then shall his yoke depart from off them, and his burden depart off their shoulders. So who is the people that's in the land burdening right now? Who are they burdening right now today? Champion mystery is all in the news. The Palestinians, right? They're burdening them. They're sending all kind of missiles and all kind of things, destroying up everything in the land. So he says, when the Lord removes the Assyrian, he's going to take the yoke off of them, and his burden shall depart off their shoulders. This is the purpose that is purposed upon the whole earth. And this is the hand that is stretched out upon all the nations. Why? Because the Lord is going to use that place to bring all nations together, starting with that conflict. Keep that in mind. Watch how we read down. For the Lord of hosts have purpose, and who shall disannul it? And his hand is stretched out, and who shall turn it back? You can't pray this away. right? You can't go to the church. You can't write a peace treaty. You can't stop it. This is the purpose of the Lord across the whole earth, and all nations are going to draw to it, right? It says, in the year that King Ahaz died was this burden. Rejoice not thou, whole Palestina, right? So now we're coming right back to who? The Palestinians, right? It says, because the rod of him that smote thee is broken. Don't rejoice because those who had put all kind of burdens on you has now been taken out of the way, right? So now you want to rejoice. Now you want to say, yeah, he was the devil, all we doing. Now we can come back to our land. No, because it was never for you either, right? It says, because the rod of him that smote thee is broken, for out of the serpent's root shall come forth a cockatrice, and his fruit shall be a fiery, flaming serpent. So it's giving you the image of a flying, right? Something that's flying, that's going to be fiery. What's flying and fiery? What's
16.
Huh? There you go. The missiles. Flying and firing of the ICBM missiles is going to come to destroy, right? So don't get too proud because it's really not for you. The Lord's judgment, just because he removed one people out of the way, don't think that you can now think that how we got it back. No. It says, and the firstborn of the poor shall feed. Who's the firstborn? Exodus 4:22. Israel is my son, even my firstborn. And the needy shall lie down in safety. Who's the poor and needy? That's what you read about in the Beatitudes with Yahushua, right? He's speaking about us. We're the poor and needy. And I will kill thy root with famine, and he shall slay thy remnant. Howl, O gate, cry, O city, thou whole Palestina, art dissolved, for there shall come from the north a smoke, and none shall be alone in his appointed times. So the Lord's judgment also reaches to the Palestinians, those who are physically there today. I posted a video, I think, in the chat group about how, I don't know where they was. I think it was the brothers from ISUPK. They was going to battle physically with the Palestinian protests or what have you. I don't know what was said. I can just assume that scriptures like these were brought out that says that this is not for you. You over there fighting for a land that's not yours. During the times, I think, following after the Ottoman Turks, they came into that land, right? And then that's when Esau came following them, and that's where they've been battling. But again, this is the purpose of the Most High. All that we see is the purpose and judgment of the Lord, all right? As we said, we're break. All right, now we go back to our regular program. We'll finish that up later on in Most High's will next week's class. But because I know Kahan was confused about Philistine and Palestine, I just wanted to just touch on that real quick.
And you see the same thing when we look at the God prophecy too. It's the first people that lived there, right? Who were Japheth. But the prophecy, you look at the way concerning who it's talking about, you know it's not talking about the original Japhethites that there is.
Correct.
So who's in that region now? So it's doing the same thing with Palestine.
That's an excellent point. Because when we also go, as Khan is mentioning, when you go into the table of nations, right? 18 nations that's on the planet Earth that you see out of the Bible, and you get 8 come out of Shem, and then you have Japheth and Ham. When you get to Japheth, right? Let me see if I could bring this up real quick. Japheth, because they have, here we go. Is this it? Yes. All right. So let me share the screen. Here we go. So when you look at, this is an adaptation of the map of Noah's sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, and where they inhabited back in the ancient world. So you'll see Japheth that's up here in the north, all throughout Europe. Oh, it's not sure. Salak. Yeah, you'll see, here's the map. We make it a little bit bigger. And you'll see the map here, bottom left is the land of Ham, right? This was the indigenous Hamites, now known today as Africa, getting their name from Leo Scipio Africanus from the Second Punic War. Then to the east of it, you'll see in the pinkish color where the Shemites dwell, right? So in that area all the way across is where Shem was supposed to dwell. Now, this is not 100% it's an adaptation of where the map makers thought to have seen where Japheth, Shem, and Ham would dwell. But to Kahan Nabiya's point, when you look at Japheth, right up here is all of Europe to include Russia and all those regions. But when you read the Bible and the prophecies, a lot of these areas that's over here in what would be modern day Europe, Spain, Italy, Germany, France, all of those that have Japhetic names today are inhabited by Esau, right? So you'll see in certain areas, see Germany, right? You'll see that name there, but that was inhabited by the Japhetic people at a certain point in time. Then you'll see France, then you'll see Spain, but then you'll see the biblical names right above it, right? So you see Ashkenaz, you see Meshach, you see Thrace, Kittim. All these are names that you see that pertain to Japheth, but Esau, during the times when Alexander the Greek began to rise up, during that period of time when they began to take over those different empires at that time, they pushed also north and took over and conquered these regions, right? And pushed out the Japhetic people, where the Japhetic people now inhabit majority of the places over here in the Pacific Islands, right? Your Australia, Fiji, the Tongan Islands, all these different areas fall to the Pacific. That's where they inhabited today. That's where they are. So Japheth is mainly there, but now when you look at these regions here, it's mainly Esau, right? And that's why it may be difficult for some people when they read the Bible about Gog and Magog, right? Because you see up here to where Russia is, you see the name stretches all the way across. It says Magog, right? And then it says Gog in the other area. You may not know what that's talking about because you have to align the Bible and the biblical names and the people was there with history to know that these were the original Japhetic people and that's their land. But now Esau came and took it over, and the Most High is actually prophesying about Esau living in that land. And that's how the prophecy is going to get fulfilled. All right. So again, if this is also confusing, perplexing, write it down, take note. So Mark brought out some map. I don't know what the heck he's talking about. We'll come back. We'll come back to that as well.
And I even see that you said, I'm glad you said not 100% because I'm scratching my head like in Spain they put two balls.
Yeah.
Two balls over here on the right because it's considered Shem.
Correct.
Then that should be Tarshish.
Right. So you got to be careful. The whole point, you got to be careful where when you're going into, like I pulled up like the Table of Nations, you Googling online, and it had the sons of Shem, the sons of Ham, the son of Japheth, and like I've gone like 4 or 5 in a row, and they all off. They have some information that's on point, but then they have other. They leave things out. You're like, yo, where's this people at? They're not even in the name in the list. So you got to be careful. Bring that to the classes and let us go and correlate it with what's in the scriptures, right? So that way you can get the whole full picture. All right. So that was about a 30-minute or so break. Let's get back to 1 Kings 9. And I think we left off at 8. So we have verse 9 now. Yeah, that shake real quick, boy. I'll be there in 1 minute. Like 1 minute turned into an hour. All right, it says verse 9, 1 Kings chapter 9 and 9. And they shall answer, because they forsook the Lord their God, who brought forth their fathers out of the land of Egypt, and have taken hold upon other gods, and have worshipped them and served them. Therefore have the Lord brought upon them all this evil, right? Read it, I think, in Daniel chapter 9 and 7. It says that we have confusion of faces, right? When you take upon another God and follow their practices, you have now confusion of face. Remembering that the way the Most High spoke to Moses is I see him face to face. We want to be able to see the Lord eye to eye, right? When you see a person eye to eye, that means y'all on the same plane. Y'all in agreement with one another, right? It's a storyline when you read in the gospel when Satan, the spirit of Satan, was on Peter and he was trying to stop Yahushua from fulfilling his purpose, And as Yahushua is looking at Peter, Yahushua says, "Get thee behind me, Satan." Right? He knew the spirit was on Peter, and Peter was not seeing Yahushua for what it is, what his purpose was. And he had to try to take that spirit off of Peter and cast him to the back so that Peter could see Yahushua face to face, eye to eye. We always want to be able to look spiritually eye to eye with the Most High and Yahushua. We don't want something else to come and be in between, right? So as you're now listening to these other thoughts, listening to these other doctrines, you have now allowed something to come in between you and your power, you and your Savior, right? So this is where the Lord had now cast this judgment upon us because we allowed other gods to come, and now we look at these things as the power. We look at Pharaoh and Egyptology as our God. We look at Allah as our God. And we look at Caesar Borgia, who's the imposter posing as Yahushua, as our God. And there's not so much the image, the physical image, it's the spiritual image, right? Because they have their own rituals and traits and practices that you follow that now deter you from what the Most High wants us to follow.
What about the Anunnaki, brother? Caught up on the Anunnaki, brother.
Mm-hmm.
The original people who built the pyramids, but
all of these things, we're going to touch on some of this in the next chapter as well, but a lot of these other doctrines cloud our minds in judgment and deter us from our glory. It says in verse 10, "And it came to pass at the end of 20 years, when Solomon had built the two houses, the house of the Lord and the king's house." We touched on it in verse 1. 7 years for the temple, 13 years for his own house, right? It says, "Now Hiram, the king of Tyre, had furnished Solomon with cedar trees and fir trees, and with gold, according to all his desire. That then King Solomon gave Hiram 20 cities in the land of Galilee. And Hiram came out from Tyre to see the cities which Solomon had given him, and they pleased him not." So now, as a reward or a sign of good faith and gesture, Solomon was like, "Look, I want to give you 20 cities that's dwelling within Israel," right? So when he comes out to see these 20 cities, he's like, "Yo, man, what is this? What is this that you gave me?" He was displeased in Solomon's gesture. It says, "And he said, What cities are these which thou hast given me, my brother?" And he called them the land of Kabul unto this day, which it says dirty or displeasing in my caption. Good for nothing is what they say the literal translation of Kabul means, right? So say again. This is verse 13.
Oh, 13. Oh, okay.
Right. He called the land of Kabul unto this day, meaning displeasing or dirty or good for nothing. Right. Now, that spirit of vibration that he said back then is probably, a testimony to have that carryover to what we read in the New Testament. Right. So go to St. John. Go to St. John chapter 1, I think. St. John chapter 1 and verse, I'm going to start at 45. If somebody can read that. St. John 1 and 45.
You don't like my cities? You ain't get nothing, bro. Bounce. I gotta give you no cities.
St. John 1 and 45.
It's current, St. John chapter 1 and verse 45.
St. John chapter 1 and verse 45 reads, "Philip findeth Nathanael and said unto him, We have found him of whom Moses in the law and the prophets did write, Jesus of Nazareth, son of Joseph."
Right. So that's another good scripture going for the quote unquote virgin birth, right? Because they said that he was the Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph, right? They knew that his father was Joseph and he impregnated Mary, right? It wasn't a known thing. It was like, oh no, that's the direct son of God. Like, nah, right? I'm pretty sure the way Jake is, the way how we operate, it would have been a thing. Like, it would have been a known back and forth in the scriptures. about this situation and how we act in character, right? But it says, we have found him of whom Moses in the law and the prophets did write, Jesus of Nazareth. Nazareth is a city in Galilee, right? We found him in there. Read.
But real quick, but they'll say with this verse here, that even though it says the son of Joseph, he says it's an internal thing. People don't know.
Right.
That as far as the Holy Spirit came when Mary pregnant her, they know he was with her.
Right.
Automatically, they assume that was the dad.
Right. Right. But we know now.
Right.
They didn't know back then.
Right.
we like people today would have known, but they back then they would have not known anything.
Exactly.
But now go ahead with 46.
46. And Daniel said unto him, can there any good thing come out of Nazareth? Philip said unto him, come and see.
Right. So Nazareth had a bad rep, had a bad name, right? What you saying? What come out of where? Come on, man. Any good thing come out of that place, right? So it's like what Hiram, king of Tyre, is looking is like, yo, what is this that you giving me? Right? It was not the best of the best that we had at that time that Solomon had now offered unto him. Even fast forward, you see here that stigma still kind of stayed on Galilee, specifically in Nazareth, right? But we know that out of the concrete jungle, out of the depths, a rose can come up, right? You can find those righteous gems or those righteous individuals as we have become coming out of the ghettos and slums, right? They're going to say the same thing when you read in Wisdom of Solomon, I think it's chapter 5, as far as for this is who we didn't think he was going to be anything. This guy here that was in North Philly, that was in Harlem doing all that crazy stuff. And now we don't look for these people to come out of these places to be the sons and the daughters of God, right? The Lord's not really particular about the place as he is with the people.
Even the word Israelite among our own people, they despise that word. They despise being called Israelite. I'm like, man, don't you know Christ is an Israelite? You despise Christ, though. And that's the part they miss.
Right.
No, like what says in Luke 4:24.
Mm-hmm.
I'll read the.
Oh, you're ready?
To say.
Yeah. Read the next verse and you can read yours out.
St. John 1:47. Yahushua saw Nathanael coming to him and said of him, behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom is no God.
Israelite. I ain't no Israelite. That's my Israelite. What name kind of name is that? I never heard no name called Israelite. Man, people be so literally ignorant when they be saying things like that, meaning they don't know, right?
Well, I told somebody, did you know Christ is Israelite? I said, what? Christ Israelite?
Okay, y'all can.
Yeah, Luke chapter 4, verse 24. And it says, verily I say unto you, no prophet is accepted in his own town, in his own country.
Mm-hmm. No prophet is accepted in his own country. Now, just for a tidbit, because it says Jesus of Nazareth. So was Yahushua of Nazareth or was he of Bethlehem?
Then we should start saying, somebody asks, you believe in Jesus? He's like, the Israelite? Jesus? You start saying that.
Yeah. So it said Jesus of Nazareth. Was he of Nazareth or was he of Bethlehem? This is one of those trivia, right? So Yahushua was born in Bethlehem, right? City of David. He was born in there, but he grew up in Nazareth, right? He grew up in Nazareth, but he was born in Bethlehem. You can write down Matthew chapter 2 and verse 1. Matthew 2:1, it says, now when Yahushua was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, right? So now this is going into that time, and then later on, we know Yahushua, Joseph, and Joseph took his family, and they departed and went into Egypt. And then they came back after that Herod had died, right? So then you can write down Luke 4:16. Luke 4:16, it says, and he came to Nazareth, talking about Yahushua, where he had been brought up. And as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up to read. So he was born in Bethlehem, but he grew up in Nazareth. So that's why you'll see both names, both titles, or both cities and locations for Yahushua. Same thing, like, you know, sometimes people ask me, where you from? Brooklyn. Was born in Brooklyn, but I grew up in Newark. Right? Same type thing, right? I can't claim it as a place that I grew up in because I was just born there. I got, you know, my paperwork and everything says this, but this is my upbringing took place, right? All right, so let's go back to 1 Kings.
I was thinking about Paul, like he was a Roman. Yeah, he was an Israelite, but I know he was a Roman citizen.
Mm-hmm.
But I forgot where he was at the time.
Was it?
No, when the person didn't realize he was a Roman, he was a Roman.
That's what other scripture, Acts 21:37. But Acts when you talking about where he was born, where he grew up?
Or where he was at physically when he said that?
Yeah.
Where Paul was, he said that he was a Roman citizen. You know, Paul traveled a lot of places.
It's a color.
Yeah.
I remember that one. So the people are spelling? 30.
Yeah, Acts 21:37. He says he's a Jew of Tarsus. I'm saying, where was he at physically?
He was not Spain. Huh?
No. So this is like where Turkey going towards Turkey. Where Turkey is today. You look on the old map.
Yeah, you can read up in Acts to see what he's at. But that's like kind of say that's a good scripture if you want to go through the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, to show that the original people of antiquity, what they would actually look like, because Paul was classified or being called an Egyptian there. When you read in Acts 21:37 on down, that could speak the language, could speak Greek, right? And they kind of questioned about that because they assumed that he was, you know, of one people. Now, the people of antiquity of Egypt were people of color, right? When you go into their pyramids and their tombs and some of the catacombs that was left as records, you'll see the images of them on the wall and us as slaves as well during their times of rule, right? So you'll see that they're people of color. All right, so let's go back. Something good to research by Google online. You'll see certain images from then, also during the Assyrian captivity and further on. So now we have 1 Kings 9 and 12. It's a lot. 14. It says, and Hiram sent to the king 60 talents of gold, and this is the reason of the levy which King Solomon raised, for to build the house of the Lord and his own house, and Milo and the wall of Jerusalem, and Hazor and Megiddo and Gezer, right? So Megiddo is interesting because, you know, when you read about Armageddon in Revelations, I think it's the 19th chapter. Give me 1 second. That is the same area or place that is referencing. No, it might be 16. Yeah.
Going into
yes, Revelation 16 and 14 down to 16, right? So when you're reading about Megiddo, this is going into that same region, that same area where the Lord is going to have his purpose to be fulfilled. So this is Revelations, again, 16:14-16. I'll read this one. It says, "For there are the spirits of devils working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole world, to gather them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty." Same thing that we're reading about, what we just read in the in the Old Testament as it pertains to Isaiah 14, to gather all the nations, the same thing, to gather the whole world to the battle. Verse 15, "Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame." So not talking about physically naked, although it applies to being physically naked, because you have some people who out there are naked out there in the streets, but it's mainly talking about your mind, your spirit, because before things become physical, it starts spiritual or mental, right? You are your thoughts. So the way you think, what is that scripture? I think it's in Jeremiah or Isaiah. "So a man thinketh, so is he," right? Proverbs what?
23 and 8.
See if we get that. Yes. So a man thinketh, so is he. So what you think, that's what you're going to act out, right? So if you're thinking that you can dress in any kind of way or eat what you want to eat, right, then you're going to be exposed to your nakedness or your shame or your sin. That's why Christ says, "Blessed he that watcheth and keepeth his garments," your spiritual garments. The fringes that's on these garments, right? Each fringe is supposed to be representation of a commandment or law, right? So when it talks about girding yourselves up or arming yourselves with the armor of God or the armor of Yahushua, that's what it is. You're arming yourself or clothing your spiritual body up with all of these commandments. That carries over to the physical, right? You said Proverbs what? 23:7. "So a man thinketh, so is he," right? So this is the same context now as us making sure that we don't walk naked. Verse 16, "And he gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon," right? Which is going to be over there by where Megiddo is, right? So the Lord has his purpose, his prophecy scattered all throughout the Bible. And it's mentioned and said in different ways poetically to bring upon the same conclusion, right? Sometimes certain words and names, like you read Elijah in the Old Testament, Elisha, a different way of saying it in the New Testament, it's spelled differently. It's the same thing, just worded differently. You have certain people's names that are mentioned in one book, might be mentioned differently in another one. Even Shem, when you read Shem in the Old Testament, you read Sem in the New Testament, right? That's where they get Semite, anti-Semite, because in the New Testament, it doesn't put the H in there, it just says S-E-M for Sem, right? But it's the same person. So you got to also make sure we correlate, the languages or the differences of how things are written with Old Testament and New Testament. All right, so let's go back. So now it says in verse 16, "For Pharaoh, king of Egypt, had gone up and taken Gezer and burnt it with fire and slain the Canaanites that dwelt in the city and given it for a present unto his daughter, Solomon's wife," right? So his daughter's father, the king, went out and waged war with the people that was dwelling in Gezer. Now, this was a land that was supposed to be inherited by Israel. Go to the book of Joshua, chapter 16. Watch this. Joshua 16. And verse 1, and then we're going to jump down to 9. Joshua chapter 16, verse 1, and then we'll read 9 and 10. Actually, I'm going to start from 1 down to 3. So it says in Joshua 16:1, "And the lot or the inheritance of the children of Joseph fell from Jordan by Jericho unto the water of Jericho on the east, to the wilderness that goeth up from Jericho throughout Mount Bethel, and goeth out from Bethel to Luz, and passeth along unto the borders of Archi unto Ataroth, and goeth down westward to the coast of Japhlethi, and unto the coast of Beth Horon, the nether, and to Gezer, and the goings out thereof at the sea. So here is that same Gezer that we're reading about in First Kings that was conquered by Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and delivered to his daughter. Now let's jump down to verse 9. And the separate cities for the children of Ephraim were among the inheritance of the children of Manasseh, all the cities with their villages. So Ephraim and Manasseh, so-called Cubans, so-called Puerto Ricans, are the sons of Joseph, right? They are part of the 12 tribes. They inherited these lands. But when they inherited the land, they also inherited the people that was in the land that they could not get out. Because it says in verse 10, and they drave not out the Canaanites that dwelt in Gezer, but the Canaanites dwell among the Ephraimites unto this day and serve under tribute, right? So they taxed them. They couldn't expel them out of their own land. So it was more difficult. They said, all right, we're just going to tax them to use certain things. They got to pay us to come through this war. They got to pay us to pass through here. But it was difficult for them to fight and get all of them out. Now, we come back here to 1 Kings, verse 16 again. It says, for Pharaoh, king of Egypt, had gone up and taken Gezer and burnt it with fire and slain the Canaanites that dwelt in the city and given it for a present unto his daughter Solomon's wife. So that's the history. That's the backstory. That was a part of the lot or the inheritance of Ephraim and Manasseh, but they couldn't drive out the Canaanites. So here comes this other Hamite that fights against other Hamites and destroys them and gives that to a present to his daughter. It says, verse 17, and Solomon built Gezer and Beth Horon the nether, and Baalath and Tabmor in the wilderness in the land, and all the cities of store that Solomon had, and cities for his chariots, and cities for his horsemen, and that which Solomon desired to build in Jerusalem, and in Lebanon, and in all the land of his dominion, and all the people that were left of the Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, parasites, right? It's like a parasite. It's kind of how I said it, a parasite, right? Hivites and Jebusites, which were not of the children of Israel, their children that were left after them in the land, whom the children of Israel also were not able utterly to destroy. Upon those did Solomon levy a tribute of bond service unto this day, right? So it continued on where there was more people that throughout these different areas that Solomon had control over, dominion, he couldn't utterly drive out of the land, and he also just put them to tribute and bond service, meaning they were like slaves in the land, right? It says, but of the children of Israel did Solomon make no bondmen, but they were men of war, and his servants, and his princes, and his captains, and his rulers of his chariots, and his horsemen, right? So the Israelites, we would never have Israelites putting bondmen out of their own people. Go to Leviticus 25. This is a law. Go to Leviticus 25. And 39. Leviticus chapter 25 and verse 39. Con, if you could read that. Manashah 25:39. Leviticus 25:39.
Leviticus chapter 25 and verse 39. And if thy brother that dwelleth by thee be waxen poor and be sold unto thee, thou shalt not compel him to serve as a bondservant.
Right. So somebody falls down hard on times and they want to pay off the debt, right? He says, and he be sold unto thee, meaning he sell himself for different wages or different tasks and things to be done. You can't compel him to be like a bondman or a bond servant, like how you would have as a slave. Why? Read on.
Verse 40. But as an hired servant and as a sojourner, he shall be with thee and shall serve thee unto the years of jubilee.
Right. So you are not going to treat your brother like property like you would do with the other nations. Same thing happened during slavery. When we were in slavery captivity, even over here in the Americas, the other nation will come and say, yeah, well, we were slaves too. No, you were not. You were an indentured servant. That's what you were, an indentured servant, which is like what we're reading here as a hired servant. You were there for a period of time, and then after your time was done, you're free to go to where you were. That didn't happen to us because we were property of the nations, right? We were property of Esau and them. It's the same thing flipped for us. We would not treat our people as property. They would be hired servants, like a sojourner, just there for a time being, so that they can go back to their own land, their own inheritance, their own families. And it mentions even here during the time of Jubilee, where everything has to be given back to them and they set back in their own place. Say again? It depends.
Oh, okay.
It depends. But now when you now come to, if the year Jubilee was coming around, right, and they now had to pay off a certain debt, now he fell time, he was poor, and let's say he owed, I'm just throwing out numbers, $50,000, right? And he comes to Khan Nabiyah and he's like, yo, I'm hard times, but I'm here to work. It's like when you go to a restaurant and you ain't got no money. He said, you're gonna go in that kitchen and wash some dishes, clean that floor, right? Do whatever to pay off that debt. But now at a certain point in time, if it hits like 3 o'clock, the thing gotta be closed and you ain't finished, then you can leave. Or if he's serving Nabiyah to pay off $50,000 debt and the year Jubilee comes, when the year Jubilee comes and he only worked off $37,000, right? Hey, he's free to go, right? He's free to go. Now, one would look at it and be like, oh, man, that's messed up, man. This guy still owe me like $12,000, $13,000. Most High, how can you do that? But the Most High, as grateful and beneficial as he is, he will bless that brother, right? He will bless the increase of his hand so that he can get more to replenish what it is. And it doesn't have to be from that man. The Most High can give you that, right? So you got to put that in your mind and say, well, dag, we always joke about it where, yeah, the year Jubilee come by, nobody want a loan, nobody want to do nothing. It's like, man, come on, man. It's like another year and you coming to me with this? Come on, brother, I can't do it. Nah, you got to be a brother and understand that everything that we have is from the Most High.
Jubilee's over. Oh, yeah, you got to come.
Oh, yeah, the year Jubilee, you got nothing. No, he don't come back. He done. He's good, right? But the purpose of the precept here is to show that we treated Israelites who was now working off a debt to not be like bondmen or bondwomen. We treated them as hired servants. In today's time, it would seem like as an indentured servant. The other nations, we would treat them as bondmen. That's what Solomon did with those other Canaanites, those people that was in the land. He treated them as bondmen and put them to tribute.
It's funny because the same thing Israel talks about under the curse, where we see the nations. They say, look out for each other. They got each other's back. They hook each other up in their Chinatown and their Russia town and this town and that town, whatever town they're in. They hook each other up. They got each other's back. Causing forces amongst each other, to where it's like brother getting over. It's really you getting over,
right? Because
when he's doing well, you're doing well. We're doing well,
right?
But we're just so far moved. So dog eat dog. People.
All right, so let's go back. So that was what, 39 to 40? Leviticus 20, 39, and the 40.
We always make jokes about on the Day of Atonement service. I think in Deuteronomy 15, it says the Day of Atonement comes in. That's when they kick it off. And we always say the image of like the sun setting. Brother chasing another brother off the field, trying to get up for the money. As soon as the sun sets, they go start running. Like, you can't get me down. The sun just it's like, find you, remember? Find you.
Actually, go back. Let's finish that up because there's some good precepts. Let's go back to that Leviticus 25 and read down to 44 because it's going to clear everything up, even what he just mentioned. So we read 39 and 40. Now read from 41.
Leviticus chapter 25 and verse 41. And then shall he depart from thee, both he and his children with him, and shall return unto his own family, and unto the possession of his father shall be returned.
Mm-hmm.
For there are many servants. Oh, 42, right?
Mm-hmm.
For there are my servants, which I brought forth out of the land of Egypt. They shall not be sold as bondmen.
Mm-hmm.
Thou shalt not rule over him with rigor, but shall fear thy God.
So now, when they are hired servant, a sojourner working with you, you can't rule over them with rigor. You better remind yourself the Most High's watching, right? So the way what you think you're going to treat your brother that's working for you with rigor, the Most High is going to deal with you in a certain case. That's why it says, "But thou shalt fear thy God," right? Galatians 6 and 7. You reap what you sow. So if you don't want to do that, you don't put that energy out there for that energy to come back to you from the Most High, right? But read
44. Both thy bondman and thy bondmaid, which thou shalt have, shall be of the heathen that are round about you. Of them shall he buy bondman and bondmaid.
right. So the heathen, the other nations, the strangers, you can purchase as property. Now, you read this, or people read this, and they like, man, hold on, man. Is the Bible talking like this? Is this God? Because most in Christianity, you would never think. You would never think that the Most High would sanction this, right? As you're reading it explicitly, it's like, well, what God am I serving if the Most High is now saying that I can go and buy a man or a woman and rule over them with rigor? I can't do that to a Hebrew man or Hebrew, but I could do that to them, right? You would think, as society says, we all equal. We should treat everybody equally with equity, right? The same way I did with you, the same way I did with me.
Well, one would say, well, that was back then because how it was back then. It's not like that now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's different. Christ changed that.
Right.
I said, but my brother's lazy. He's lazy and he don't want to do the work in time.
So you do it in
We're gonna punish you.
So you're gonna whip them. You're gonna whip them. See, the thing about when you look at this, right, is in situations like that. Back then, is a different case when Israel all knew the Most High, right? When we all know the Most High and we both enter into these situations or these agreements with that understanding, you have a responsibility to now act accordingly, to now be held accountable for what your obligations are. Same thing with the person who's now as a person or an overseer over you. He has a responsibility. It carries over into the New Testament. We did a class on this a couple months back about masters and servants. How masters and servants in the New Testament ain't talking about actual task masters. It's talking about those who are your leaders or your teachers, with those who are now coming up in the church, right? How you deal with that person. Because somebody can say, yo, the brother didn't clean the mirrors. We all got responsibility cleaning here, and he didn't clean the mirrors. So now I'm going to go rule over him with Rick. No, I'm not going to do that, right? Because that's a brother. And that brother should understand his or her the same thing, responsibility. So when a person lacks, and a person just kind of either rebelliously just doesn't want to do it because you don't want to do it, say, all right, cool. Don't worry, brother. All right, we might have to separate from you right now, but we're not going to allow that energy. All right, cool. You can go and do something somewhere else. Now, we'll clean the mirrors. We'll do it. But then the Most High may jack you up. The Most High may get you and punish you, separate from us that we don't even know about. We may hear about it, but the Lord will jack you up. So that's why it says the fear of the Most High has to be in everybody, so that each and every one of us are held accountable for our actions. Nowadays, when you're in this setup, when you got the majority of our people who don't know the Most High, who not following the standard, that's when it becomes difficult, where you cannot deal with that person in the manner like how you want to according to scripture, because they either following something else, but you now coming in and allowing them to work off a debt. We are still obligated to hold up our end of the bargain. I'm still not going to rule over him with rigor. I'm still not going to treat him as I would treat somebody else, because I know better. He or she that doesn't, Most High going to deal with that, right? You know, you pray for them, you hope they get it, you try to advise them and show them certain things with wisdom, and if they don't get it, then you say, okay, brother, sister, all right, you know, shalom, right? Or you try to deal with it judiciously, because sometimes it may involve more than just, you know, small things. It may involve heavier weighted matters. So you may have to go about it a different way, but we still have to uphold this standard that we don't deal with our people like that. Now, I see your hand. Now, understand that the curse made a whole 180. Deuteronomy made a 180. So the same way how we was allowed to deal with the other nations, that's how they dealing with us. So now when you look at slavery and you say, yeah, the Irishmen came over here and I was a servant. No, you was an indentured servant. You were his brother. He's not going to rule over you the same way he ruled over us. That's what we would have done, right? So in our captivity or in our rulership, it's someone's going to be on top, someone's going to be on the bottom, right? That's the way the Lord has it arranged. So they're going to be saying, yeah, you that guy, Monashai, man, he gave us the bad meat. He gave us the bad meat all bruised up. They eating that meat without blemish. But we getting all the bruised up. You see going to the chicken store, red blotches on the leg over here, and there's dark red or purple over here. You're like, yo, what the heck they did to the meat? Yeah, give them the roadkill, right? It died of itself, and you don't know, right? But now that's what they're doing to us. That's in the law is what we were supposed to have been doing to them, right? So it became a 180 of the curse. So now as we're reading this in Leviticus, we say to ourselves, Dad, I can't believe the Most High allowed that. The Most High is allowing it right now, but to our detriment.
Yeah, kind of. This matter is similar to the matter when it comes to engaging in warfare, to where the scriptures make it clear as far as these are the rules or principles behind warfare if it comes. Or if you have bond men and bond women versus like a manservant and maidservant. But now Esau will take these same conventions and go extra with it, like Obadiah said, right? You just don't know when to stop with your warfare, when to stop when it comes to their slavery. Then, after the smoke clears, he done got all the riches. He tell everybody else, violence isn't the way, right? You shouldn't have slaves at all.
Right.
Warfare isn't the way. You shouldn't have war. War is sent to the Hague, the military court, the world court, to be judged by, a group of our peers. So you shouldn't do that. It's like all the dark nations, even their own people, a lot of times looking at them and going, "That's how you guys got anything." These guys are just holy bozo with them, where they do that.
They throw rocks and how they.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go back and finish up in the 9th chapter. We have verse 23 now. Okay. 1 Kings 9 and 23, it says, these were the chief of the officers that were over Solomon's work, 550 that bear rule over the people that wrought in the work. So these are Israelites who were servants of Solomon, who were officers and had certain positions to take care of the affairs of Solomon. Verse 24, but Pharaoh's daughter came up out of the city of David unto her house, which Solomon had built for her. Then did he build Milo. So we read a couple months back that Solomon had to move his wife from where she first dwelt because of the temple. Write down again, 2 Chronicles chapter 8. 2 Chronicles chapter 8. He had to move his Egyptian wife. 2 Chronicles chapter 8. And I'm gonna read from verse 10, right? Because this part, 2 Chronicles. 2 Chronicles 8 and 10 to 11. It says, and these were the chief of King Solomon's officers, even 250 that bear rule over the people, that we just read in 1 Kings 9. And Solomon brought up the daughter of Pharaoh out of the city of David unto her house that he had built for her, which was in Milo that we just read. But this part was not there. It says, for he said, my wife shall not dwell in the house of David, king of Israel, because the places are holy, whereunto the ark of the Lord hath come. Right? So David and Solomon was wise enough to say, she's a heathen. One of my wives is a heathen. She can't dwell here. She can't live here because this is holy ground. I got to move her over there. Right? And she had her own palace. Right? When you read it previously in the book of Kings, she had her own nice palace that Solomon built for her. But he was wise enough to know that because these places are holy, she can't be coming through and here and there through the courts. She got to be separated. No, Israel will probably be looking at her side eye like, well, what the heck is this? Just because she married to Solomon, that she could just defile and break the laws of God? So to make sure that wouldn't happen, sorry, you can't live here. You got to go over there.
But at the same time, Solomon was off too because he wasn't supposed to marry.
Exactly. Right.
He was wise enough to see that.
You're right.
But he wasn't wise enough.
Yeah. Hey, man. You know, women, man. You know, granted, it was, you know, an agreement most likely between the king of Egypt to give his daughter unto Solomon. But yes, right. All these men had some flaws. Like these men were not without some stain or something that was wrong that they had done. And then as you read on, that's going to be a major problem under Solomon because of these heathen women.
Yeah, Kahan Manashah and I were talking about it earlier in the Laws for Kings, Deuteronomy 17. What they say today, and we watch the Red Pill guy talk about money card women.
Mm-hmm.
In the scriptures, it says, wise, gold, and silver, and chariots. Same thing.
Right.
You know, it's just like, once again, it says, most hasn't got a number. It says, for the king that we have amongst us, don't multiply wise, don't multiply chariots, don't multiply gold and silver, where it makes you forget your heart. Forget it.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't give a number. He puts it on, you know, he puts it in our hands to make that decision. As far as how far we'll go.
All right, so let's finish on. It says, verse 25, and 3 times in a year did Solomon offer burnt offerings and peace offerings upon the altar which he built up to the Lord. And he burnt incense upon the altar that was before Yahweh. So he finished the house, right? So 3 times Solomon was offering offerings, burnt offerings and peace offerings, which was when? Passover. Tabernacles. First fruits, right? So these are the 3 times that all men was mandatory to appear. Write down Exodus chapter 23, an Exodus precept. Exodus 23:14. Exodus 23:14. It says, 3 times thou shalt keep a feast unto me in the year. Thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread. Thou shalt eat unleavened bread 7 days as I commanded thee in the time appointed of the month of Abib. For in it thou camest out from Egypt, and none shall appear before me empty. And the feast of harvest, the first fruits of thy labors, which thou hast sown in thy field, and the feast of ingathering, which is in the end of the year, when thou hast gathered in thy labors out of the field, right? So feast of ingatherings, also the feast of tabernacles, feast of harvest of first fruits, also known as the Pentecost or the Feast of Weeks, right? Somehow holy days have different names. Feast of unleavened bread, Passover, the Feast of sweet bread, right? As it's also called when you read the Apocrypha. So these are the 3 times that all males must appear. Verse 17. 3 times in the year all thy males shall appear before the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread, neither shall the fat of my sacrifice remain until the morning. So as you read down, it just goes into the ordinance. But this is when Solomon dedicated the house, and these 3 times these offerings were done. You could also write down Deuteronomy 16 and 16 on down. It goes and says the same thing.
Okay. 25.
Con. All right. So let's read on. Verse 26. And King Solomon made a navy of ships in Ezion Geber, which is beside Eloth, on the shore of the Red Sea in the land of Edom. And Hiram sent in the navy his servants, shipmen that had knowledge of the sea, with the servants of Solomon. So during Solomon's times, I know we hear about the Navy, right? Today's times, U.S. has probably the largest or biggest Navy, right? Military ships that's out there. But Navy was pretty much mainly back then merchants, right? They had ships and they would travel different places to go and acquire different goods, right? It wasn't so much that they was soldiers in these ships trying to go around and conquer. They were going and bartering and trading, because it says, and Hiram sent in the navy his servants, shipmen that had knowledge of the sea, with Solomon, the servants of Solomon, and they came to Ophir and fetched from thence gold 420 talents and brought it to King Solomon. So they went to this place because it was most reputable. When you read throughout the Bible, Ophir to have the best quality of gold, right? You'll see it in other areas as it pertains to the comparison of this gold. And then sometimes you'll see that we men, the Israelite men, are going to be in comparison to fine gold, right? Gold is pretty much the most precious metal that we have in the world, right? We are going to be even more precious than the metal. With this wisdom, with this knowledge, with this understanding, we are more valuable than the gold itself. Well, I think is that Isaiah? Yeah, Isaiah 13. Isaiah the 13th chapter in Isaiah 13. Con. 13 and 12. It's a precept for this. Isaiah 13 and 12, where it says, I will make a man more precious than fine gold, even a man than the golden wedge of Ophir. That's what we're reading about here. That Solomon's navy ships and Hiram's navy ships went down to Ophir to go and fetch and brought back a lot. But the Lord says that he was going to make a man, an Israelite man, a Hebrew man, more precious, more valuable than any of that gold. I don't care how much you bring back. One man's wisdom is going to outvalue that. That's how precious we are in the Lord's sight. Y'all can understand.
This on the sidebar. I mean, one of Kanye's daughter, she said that she favored.
Speak up to me.
I remember in the news recently that one of Kanye West's kids, his daughter, he preferred to be with her father than with her mother. So, they were just saying that in the news. He said, like a single dad, and the father is important.
Mm-hmm.
Like mother all the time, but the father is important.
Is this going to that conversation that we had a couple weeks back?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I saw that and I read that, and I saw what Kim Kardashian said was the reason behind that, as far as because there's no discipline or whatever. I don't know how true that is, but the reason why y'all brought that up is because a couple years back I was traveling somewhere and we got into a discussion about single parent households, and in the discussion, it was a bunch of men, and they were talking about how they grew up, and this person didn't have this person that had that. And I think it was an Edomite psychologist that was sitting somewhere else, and she overheard the conversation, and she said that she kind of intervened and jumped in, and I was like, "Oh, you guys are having an interesting conversation." She says, "But in my experiences, I found out that it's better if you have a single parent household, right? Where it's either going to be a single parent mother or a single parent father. It's better to have a single parent father than to have a single parent mother. For either child, whether it's a boy or a girl, it's better to have a single parent father because of what that father brings to the son and to the daughter, right?" And we got into the discussion and thinking about it and looking at a lot of the things that happen in life, especially with absentee fathers with girls. We always know, he would say, "Listen, man, you got a son. Father should raise a son, right? Fathers got to raise their sons." But when you look at daughters and a lot of absentee fathers and daughters' lives, right? And when you see how they grew up and what happens, what did they say? She got daddy issues. What are those daddy issues? Because she never got that type of structure from a man, that type of love and discipline from a man. And that absence of it causes her to go out there and try to find it in the wrong ways, where she's now, and a lot of times when they talk about people who are in the strip clubs, people who are out there showing off themselves in any kind of way, this is because of a representation of that, right? Now, this is what the conversation was. And as I started to meditate and think about it, it made sense to a degree that the man who's supposed to be the figurehead of women has to play that prominent role, has to be there, right? Whether it's a daughter or a son, the man has to be there.
Yeah, and as far as like the
Hold on, it's a lot before you continue on. And I'm not saying that any woman who has raised their children by themselves, y'all just off. No, those are the circumstances and consequences of broken homes, right? That's the curse that's in Deuteronomy 20th chapter, 54th verse, right? That was a curse for us breaking the commandments, that would be the circumstance that we're in. Women have been put into that position, and that's just what the curse is. That's what it is, right? And they've done an admirable job with what cards they were dealt, right? Where they got 2 kids, 3 kids, 5 kids, all kind of kids, and none of the men is there, but they're left to try to the best of their ability to raise those kids. This conversation was, if it had to be, the best situation would have been for a man to raise those children up if he had to be by himself. I mean, not be up.
Mm-hmm. I got to say, law of averages, you put the law of averages, I got you.
Right.
Yeah, and you see a lot of discussion around now with these, relationship gurus and the red pill space, they call it. We talk about like a high value man. You see it when it comes to the economy too. We talk about artificial intelligence replacing men and women to jobs, to where scripture like this in Isaiah 15, interesting. You consider it as if it's like a prophecy to like speak to or verse. It's like, then a man shall be more precious, like what was going on before.
Mm-hmm.
You see that dialogue happening now when it comes to work of different types, where you say, man, what can I do in a machine that can replace what I do, right? Or algorithm or artificial intelligence can faster, get to an answer faster than me, flesh and blood. You see that kind of that discussion going on now when it comes to what makes a man valuable when it comes to his possession, when it comes to how quick he can get the job done.
Right.
And with the machines that they're building, they're doing their own demise. They see that conversation happening right now with the machines getting smarter, more capable, and the people, flesh and blood, mankind, getting weaker, less capable, et cetera, et cetera.
One other precept to go with Isaiah 15 and was it 12? You could write down Lamentations 4:1. Lamentations 4:1. Where it's free, it says, "How is the gold become dim? How is the most fine gold changed? For the stones of the sanctuary are poured out in the tops of every street. The precious sons of Zion, comparable to fine gold. So we have always been esteemed to being the gold, but we have now become dim, right? It's like having actual gold. Sometimes people have their chains, their rings, right? Their bracelets. Every now and again, it might get a little bit tarnished or whatever. You take it to the jeweler to do what? Clean it up, buff it up, make it shine again, make it glisten again. How do we as people, men who are supposed to be the gold, women who are supposed to be the gold, how do we get shined and buffed up? Psalms 119:9, right? So how does a man change the error in his way? By coming back to the commandments. That's how you get buffed up again. That's how you shine again. When you're not doing it, you get dim. Starts to look all dull and faded. That's what we are, like dull and faded out there in the streets, out in the world. So we, the sons of Zion, are comparable to fine gold, but we have become dim. The Most High is now making man more precious than the actual gold through knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and our consistency in doing it. That's how we reach that goal. All right, let's go back. 1 Kings chapter 10 now. Let's finish up. 1 Kings chapter 10 and verse 1. It says, and when the queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon concerning the name of the Lord, she came to prove him with hard questions, right? So we read back in 1 Kings, the 4th chapter. Let's go there real quick. 1 Kings chapter 4 and verse 3. I'm sorry, 1 Kings chapter 4 and verse 30. Start at 29. So 1 Kings 4 and 29 says, and God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding exceeding much, and a largeness of heart, even as the sand that is on the seashore. And Solomon's wisdom excelled the wisdom of all the children of the east country and all the wisdom of Egypt, right? So Sheba, the queen of Sheba, is coming from those eastern regions, right? She's traveling up to come and hear this wisdom that Solomon has because the fame went out, right? He says word of mouth is the best marketeer, right? Yo, did you hear that? Did you hear this? Yo, he just crushed what this guy said. He's doing this. Like, I never heard anyone break that down like this. We never knew what that was for. Solomon is breaking it all down. She's sitting back like, nah, man, ain't nobody wiser than that dude. Man, he put him to bed. So now what happens? You're like, okay, well, we gotta roll up there. And his God is the same God that delivered his people through the Red Sea. Oh, those people? Yeah, his God did that. So now she's recognizing, it says here in verse 1, and when the queen of Sheba heard the fame of Solomon concerning the name of the Lord, because it's just not Solomon alone. Solomon gave it up to the Most High. Thus saith the Lord, and took him and so on. So the Yahweh is attached with Shalamah. That's what Solomon's name in Hebrew, Shalamah, peaceable. So now she's like, well, I got to come and see and hear about this God and this king that has all this wisdom, right? So he says, came to prove him with hard questions. Not no easy stuff, stuff that nobody has been able to answer. Verse 2, and she came to Jerusalem with a very great train, with camels that bear spices and very much gold and precious stones. And when she was come to Solomon, she communed with him of all that was in her heart, right? So it's like sometimes when we be having classes and we get new people come in class, or you've been there for a couple of weeks, like, yo, you got any questions? Anything, ask it. Anything, whether you use something in the Bible, something that you know seen or heard, ask it, right? So she came with a laundry list of questions, a laundry list of comments that she wanted to see how he was going to break it down, how he was going to interpret it, how he was going to deal with this, right? Anything that was in her heart. So imagine, it's not like no 1 hour conversation. It's not like no one day like dealing. This was probably a period of time that she's dealing it, she's observing, she's checking this out, going all over, and now sitting with him and coming, because you got to check someone out. It's not like one day, because he might be good just today. I'm gonna come back tomorrow. Come back. Yeah, let me come back tomorrow. All right, let me go check some grass and come back again. And every time he come back, it's like boom, boom. He's answering, he's giving it, he's expounding way far beyond what she thought she was going to hear. Right? It says in verse 3, and Solomon told her all her questions. That was not anything hid from the king, which he told her not. So he was bringing forth all knowledge. He didn't hold back on any of the breakdowns. He didn't hold back on any of the wisdom. Now we read a few months back as it pertains to Solomon's knowledge. Solomon, when we talk about a king, like it wasn't just knowledge that we just read. He knew how to break down Micah to him. He knew how to break down Jeremiah. No, Solomon had knowledge of the world. He had knowledge of the sun, moon, and stars. He had knowledge of the plants. He had knowledge of the animals. He had knowledge about the psyche of men. All things Solomon knew. So when we read that in 1 Kings 4, the Lord blessed Solomon with this wisdom. It's just not like, yeah, he gave him wisdom. Like, how we thinking, like, I got some wisdom. I know some breakdowns. You know, his was on a whole nother level. On a whole nother level. Anything. Yo, why does that bug do such and such? I mean, there's certain things that bugs and animals do that I don't even think to even ask. Solomon didn't hold back on anything, man. Anything he brought it forth. You know, sometimes the spirit work when we going through one thing, like how I was a little bit earlier, and then all of a sudden the spirit jump, we going to something else. Yeah, he ain't hold back. That's what it says right here. There was not anything hid from the king which he told her not. I'm going to this. I'm going to that. I'm going to this. So now it's blowing her mind, right? It says, and when the queen of Sheba had seen all Solomon's wisdom and the house that he had built and the meat of his table and the sitting of his servants and the attendance of his ministers and their apparel and his cupbearers and his ascent by which he went up into the house of the Lord, there was no more spirit in her, right? She was floored. Just the ascent, like to see how he went from one place and entered into the house of the Lord was a thing. To see how the people that ministered to Solomon, how they orchestrated things was a thing. To see how the food was prepared and decorated on the table was a thing. It tells you in the scripture that Solomon put a person over every month over all the affairs of his household to deal with the nation of Israel. The apparel that they wore, right? You sometimes see on YouTube with some of our camps in certain different schools, they be decked out. Salaki, I'm kind of lost Stone. I used to love Stone. I haven't sewn in a long time. But putting on certain apparel and garments, putting decorations and bells and this and that all over the apparel. Yes, you can imagine what his court looked like, right? And then how they ascended and moved. If we was to see that, you probably be like, yo, it would probably inspire you to do more, right? But she saw all of this, and it was nothing left in her. There was nothing she could say. There's nothing she could pick out and say, that's that. I've seen that before. It's not all that. It's all right, but it ain't all that. Nah, she ain't saying none of that. Everything is on the up. Right? What does that say? It's up and it's up. Everything was up with Solomon and everybody back then. Right? Now watch this. It says, and she said to the king, it was a true report that I heard in mine own land of thine act and of thy wisdom. Howbeit I believed not the words until I came, and my eyes had seen it, and behold, the half was not told me. Thy wisdom and prosperity exceeded the fame which I had heard. Happy are thy men, happy are thy servants, which stand continually before thee, and that hear thy wisdom, right? So now you have it where when you look and judge a king, you judge a ruler, you judge a president, a monarch, they always tell you, I'm going to look and see the poor. I want to go and see the people who not sit in this court. I want to see how everybody looks. At that time, that was the best representation of the kingdom before the kingdom, right? That was the best time. Not during David's time, not during Moses, not during this time. That was the best time that we had as a nation with a king prior to the actual kingdom coming on earth. Peace. No, he fought no wars, No one was coming against him to try to conquer or fight or buck up, nothing. Everything was peaceful at that time. That's what's going to be forever and ever in the kingdom.
A small example of this is in Isaiah chapter 39, when Hezekiah showed the king of Babylon all the stuff that was in the house, the purchase things, silver, oil and spices and everything, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Smaller scale. But he shouldn't have anyway. But he did it.
Right.
What verse was that?
Isaiah chapter 39.
The whole chapter.
No, 39, verse 1 to 3.
All right. So the link up precept that y'all gave is Isaiah chapter 39, verses 1 to 3. All right, let's continue on. Verse 9. Blessed be the Lord thy God, which delighted in thee, to set thee on the throne of Israel, because the Lord loved Israel forever. Therefore made he thee king to do judgment and justice. Right. So, like we said before, it wasn't just the king. He also came to see what this God had now allowed was set up Solomon to do over the nation of Israel. And she gave props and honor to the Most High for what she had done, or what he had done for King Solomon. Verse 10. And she gave the king 120 talents of gold and of spices, very great store, and precious stones. There came no more such abundance of spices as these which the queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. So when it says she came with a very great train, she came with a lot, right? She came with a lot to also bestow as gifts to King Solomon. And of the spices, they never saw anything like that after the fact, right? So you can imagine whether it was just fragrances or things that you cook with or what have you, it was rare to now have all of that come to Solomon because it was not replicated after the fact, right? It says, and the navy also of Hiram that brought gold from Ophir brought in from Ophir great plenty of amal trees and precious stones. And the king made of the amal trees pillars for the house of the Lord and for the king's house, harps also and psalteries for singers. There came no such amal trees, nor were seen unto this day. So during that time, these amal trees are supposed to be some trees that had like very good wood, had a nice fragrance to them. So like, you got some houses, whether it's cedar or whatever, that when you go into it, you can smell it. It's like, yo, this smells nice up there. What kind of wood is that? Like there's certain trees that give off that fragrance that's very rare to acquire and to use for the purpose of building certain things. So here we see the house, the harps, psalteries, and things were made out of these amal trees. And after that, it wasn't seen in abundance like that ever again. Yeah, you using the amal trees, right? You getting the amal trees down there? Getting that down there in Florida, brother? The trees and stuff is different down there in Florida than it is up here in the upper East Coast, right? Certain things don't grow up here. Yeah, you gotta have that Navy bring that up. All right, reading on verse 13. And King Solomon gave unto the queen of Sheba all her desire, whatsoever she asked, besides that which Solomon gave of his royal bounty. So she turned and went to her own country, she and her servants. Right now, that verse right there is the verse of a stumbling block, right? Because it says, and King Solomon gave unto the queen of Sheba all her desire. Right? So it says that the fables, the myths, the stories go that one of her desires was that he gave her a son. Queen of Sheba and Solomon married, slept together. That's what marriage in the Bible, slept together and produced a son by the name of Menelik. Right? But now it says here, she turned and went to her own country, she and her servants. Throughout the Bible, you do not read anything remotely close to a claim that Solomon had a wife named Sheba, or those that came out of her people. Now today, this descendant of Menelik, right, they will be known as Cush, right, so-called Ethiopians, because they now praise and hold claim to a man named Haile Selassie the First, right? Haile Selassie the First. Sometimes you'll hear it being called, they'll say Selassie I, right? Because the first is like a Roman numeral. That's all it is. Selassie I. It's Haile Selassie the First. But they now taken it and made it some type of deity, right? They made him be a deity and aligned him with scripture to say that he now is the second coming of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Now, yeah, right, not sex, right? Now, the scriptures can disprove this whole thing, right? First thing, let's go to Isaiah chapter 34 and 16. Somebody read that for me real quick. Isaiah 34 and 16.
Isaiah chapter 34 and 16. Seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read. No one of these shall fail, none shall want her mate. For my mouth it has commanded, and his spirit it has gathered them.
Right. So it says, seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read. The book of the Lord is the word of God, the Bible, right? None of these shall fail, meaning none of the prophecies or the words that you read in the scriptures now have been proven wrong or have never come to pass, that should have come to pass. Things change. And we can say, see, back then we said it was going to happen. None of that has happened. Everything that the Most High said that's supposed to happen in its time happens. Then it says, none shall want her mate. A mate is a companion. The Bible doesn't need a companion, whether it's the Quran, whether it's the Book of the Dead, whether it's the Book of Enoch, even though the name Enoch is in the Bible, that wholly different vibration of spirit. You cannot pair it with the Bible. Same thing that now with this storyline happens to be, it now also they try to compare it or pair it with, mate it with a document called the Kebra Nagast, right? So now in the so-called Kebra Nagast, this is supposed to be aligned to the glory of the kings of the Ethiopians. This is their line of succession, their line of, monarchies of different kings that have ruled, right? So in the Kebra Nagast is where we get this storyline about the Queen of Sheba, along with the King of Solomon, and how they met, had sex, and birthed Menelik. King Solomon, and how they birthed Menelik. We don't read that in scripture, but you'll read it in this document called the Kebra Nagast, right? So it says here that it is the glory of the kings, a national epic of Ethiopia, written in Ge'ez. The text is in its existing form is at least 700 years old and is considered by many Ethiopian Christians to be historically reliable work. It is considered to hold the genealogy of the Solomonic dynasty, which followed the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. So this is their claim and how Ethiopians now also fall into or fall in line with being Israelites, right? Or what they like to call Falashas, the Falasha Jews. Even that name Falasha, which they'll say is like outcast, is like false. They're not the real, right? They're not those who come out of the line. Now, let me pull this up. So now when we go here, let me show another one. Right. So now when you look in the Bible dictionary, right? In the Bible dictionary, it says or shows Ham, because the genealogy of Ethiopia comes out of the biblical man named Cush. You'll see Cush in the Bible, you'll see Babylon in the Bible, you'll see Ethiopia in the Bible, all the same things, and there's other names as well. but they come out of the descendant of Ham, not Shem. We come out of Shem, they come out of Ham. So it says here in the Bible, the Zondervan Bible Dictionary, Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of the 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, Mizraim, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. Ethiopians are the ones that we're speaking about now, which would be Cush, right? So now when you read further down, it says the descendants of the original Ham. And these passages, Ham is used as another name for Egypt as representing Ham's principal descendant. So sometimes when you just want to deal with the whole people, Egypt would be used, or Ham would be used for that, and it's synonymous with those names. Somewhat like how you have with Joseph, with his sons, when he's speaking about Joseph, he's really talking about Manasseh, or he's really talking about Ephraim. This is in this context. So historians have realized that there's a certain genealogy that now deals with certain people. Haile Selassie himself comes out of the line of Ethiopians, or the Cushites, right? So now when you look into him, see if I could pull him up. So now when you get into Haile Selassie, right, and you'll see it here, Haile Selassie the first, where they say Selassie I. They just cut off the Haile and just say Selassie I, right? He became the emperor of Ethiopia during the time of 1930, right? And he was supposed to revolutionize all the so-called African countries and unite them unto one, right? So he now took this title as being Selassie I, but his name was Lige Tafari Mekananen. So now we also hear of Ras Tafari, right? Ras is supposed to be their form of prince, right? Ras Tafari, right? They're now making him over time to become a deity. But remembering, he's from Cush. He's not from the line of Shem. Somebody get me Numbers chapter 1 and verse 18. Numbers chapter 1 and verse 18.
Numbers chapter 1, verse 18. And they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigree after their families by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names from 20 years old and upward by their poll.
Right. So you determine your genealogy or your pedigree. We normally hear pedigree when it pertains to animals like dogs. What's the dog's pedigree, right? Meaning, from where did this dog's line come from? You want to see if it's a pure breed, right? Or if it's a mutt, where it came from. So that's what we did with our genealogy or ancestry. We had to prove who we were by the genealogy on our father's side, meaning the man carries the seed. So this man, Haile Selassie, he doesn't come out of the line or the seed or the genealogy of not only just Israel, he doesn't even come out of Shem. He comes out of Ham because he's Ethiopian or a Cushite. That's where in the book of the Kebra Nagast is talking about the line or the glory of the kings of Ethiopia. But they believe, as you read on, that it says Haile Selassie is widely considered a defining figure in modern Ethiopian history and the key figure of Rastafari. We're going to come back to that. A religious movement in Jamaica that emerged shortly after he became emperor in the 1930s. Before he rose to power, he defeated Ras Guksa Wolo Butul, nephew of Empress Tayatu of Begadamir, whatever. Begadamir. At the Battle of Akum in 1928. He was a member, watch this line, he was a member of the Solomonic dynasty, which claims, put air quotes around claims, claims to trace lineage to Emperor Menelik. Emperor Menelik the first, believed to be the son of King Solomon and Makeda, the Queen of Sheba. So the Bible doesn't name Queen of Sheba to be Makeda. Other books and reference materials will say that that was her name. So they're saying that Menelik was the offspring of Solomon and Queen of Sheba, right? Now, let's prove that that part is a lie, and then we'll get into the other aspect of this, right? Go to 1 Kings chapter 11. 1 Kings chapter 11 and verse 1.
First Kings chapter 11, verse 1. But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, woman of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites.
Right. So now it says, huh? What happened? So now it shows you here that Solomon loved many strange women, and it's going to name all the strange or heathen women that Solomon dealt with. Now remember, Queen of Sheba, she comes from Cush. But now it says the daughter of Pharaoh, who we read about, who moved to her house from out of where the city of David was and put her in Milo. Then it says the women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonites, and Hittites. It doesn't say those that came, any woman that came from Sheba, right? Doesn't say that. So if he did marry her, sleep with her, let's just say, it doesn't even have to be a ceremony. If you sleep with some woman, that is now your wife, right? Because that's what the law dictates. Once you humble a woman, she now has to become your wife, and you have to provide for her. She's not mentioned here in the women that Solomon was supposed to have slept with or impregnated. That's why I read Isaiah 34:16. Seek ye out of the book of the Lord, because these other books, these other reference materials are not the book of the Lord. They may mention some right things, meaning certain things that they may talk about may be on point. But then they're going to go off and say other things. And if you're not wise enough, you're going to read those good things and say, oh, yeah, this is on point, and just assume that everything in there is on point. And you can't do that. That's why you always got to come back and precept it with the Bible. If you can't precept it with the Bible, then throw that away. Leave that alone, right? So that's how we know that Solomon never actually slept with Sheba to produce this man named Menelik, of whom Haile Selassie comes out of, right? Now, when it comes to the Rastafarian movement, right, it was a man by the name of Leonard P. Howell. Leonard P. Howell in 1935. He was a man who was one of those revolutionists, right? He was a part of the Marcus Garvey movement. Over time, he left the Marcus Garvey movement once Haile Selassie became emperor and made him to be a deity and started the Rastafarian movement to make him be the second coming of Christ, to now allow people to now follow up under him, that he's going to gather all the dark races. That's where Rastafarian started from. That man, Leonard P. Howell, he started that whole movement around 1935. Well, I don't know if he was from Jamaica, but I know in Jamaica is where it started. You can Google, write down his name, Leonard P. Howell. Howell. Let me see if I could find something else here with him. He was the originator of Rasta.
Jamaican biographer. He's black or what?
When I looked at this picture before, he's right.
All
right, so let me see if I can pull this up. There's another one here.
I never heard of him.
Yeah.
Benjamin, stand up, Benjamin.
This one doesn't have his picture on here, but I've seen other ones with his picture. You see his picture? All right. He said he black. He black. Yeah, you don't know, right? But it says here, Leonard Percival Howell, right?
That's a Jamaican name.
Percival is prominent in Benjamin.
Yeah.
Anything English.
Right.
Englishy.
So reading the second paragraph, it says, born in May Crow River. Is that in Jamaica?
Which one? River?
Born in May.
Born in Ireland, Jamaica.
Yeah. It says, Howell left Jamaica as a youth, traveling to many places, including Panama and New York, and returned in 1932. He began preaching in 1933 about what he considered the symbolic portent for the African diaspora, the crowning of Rastafari Mekananen as Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia. His preaching asserted that Haile Selassie was the Messiah returned to earth, and he published a book called The Promised Key. Although this resulted in his being arrested for sedition and imprisoned him for 2 years, the Rastafari movement grew, right? So he started this movement to make Haile Selassie be Yahushua, to be the second coming, to be the conquering lion, right? Yeah, y'all can.
Yeah, but Haile Selassie, he did come to Jamaica in 1966, April 21st. And a whole bunch of Rastafarians went there. You know, I'm trying to recognize him. I heard that he said that he's not the Christ.
Exactly. I was just going to bring that out because they have a recording. There's a recording out there where they question, asking him about how a lot of those that's a part of that organization look to him to being God or to being Christ. And he said, I don't know why they think that. I'm just a man. I'm not that guy. Right? Now, Yahushua, when he came on the earth, he knew who he was. He didn't fit the same build as what everybody else, when they come into the earth, they don't know where they come from and they don't know their genealogy or whatever. Yahushua knew his purpose. He knew all that he needed to know about not only himself, but everyone else. But now the prophecy speaks that when Christ comes back, he's going to now go and wage righteous war and bring down all the kingdoms. When this guy took the throne, right? When Haile Selassie took the throne in 1930 and on, around the time, I think it was either I don't know if it was 33 or 36, but right before World War II, Italy, under Benito Mussolini, went to invade Ethiopia, right? Now, this is supposed to be the second coming of Christ. We know, according to the prophecies, when you read in Daniel, you read in Revelation, when Christ comes back, right, every knee shall bow. Every knee didn't bow when this guy became emperor, right? And every knee did not succumb to what Haile Selassie the first, I should say, was now pushing out as far as for what policies and what things he was going to put in place. So much so that when Benito Mussolini, right before World War II, invaded Ethiopia, this guy left and went to the League of Nations. He exiled himself from Ethiopia and went to the League of Nations. Today, we know the United Nations. This is what before the United Nations was the United Nations, it was called the League of Nations, right? They set themselves up following World War I to now go and try to bring peace in the earth and everything else, try to bring all nations together. So he went to the League of Nations to petition for them to go deal with Benito Mussolini, right? Like, this guy's invading and threatening us. And the League of Nations were the ones who tried to come and intervene. And Mussolini was like, man, get out of here. I don't care what y'all talking about. I ain't hearing that, which part of it led to World War II. So if he's the second coming of Christ, if he's supposed to be the conquering lion of Judah, what did he conquer? What did he do? Where did he go? Oh, he went to Esau. He ran up into Esau. He's supposed to be the one that's going to gather all the dark races and repair the so-called African continents. But he did not do that. He did not fulfill. I mean, we know that he's off just because, A, he's not of that line. B, Solomon never married her. C, it's like a whole bunch of proofs that you can pull out the Bible. But if you didn't have the Bible, and all you had was that he was the king of Judah, he's going to second coming of Christ, why did he not fulfill those prophecies, right? And now we still have some of our brethren, majority Benjamites, that now follow that religion that that Mr. Howell put up back then to say that he is the Messiah. He is the offspring of that man named Menelik. But the Bible and his own experiences disprove that whole theory, right? But they'll use that verse in 1 Kings 10:13 when it says, and King Solomon gave unto the queen of Sheba all her desire whatsoever she asked, as if Solomon asked her to be his wife. Now, I'm not going to go to it, but you can go look it up. Google Keeper Nagash. In this document, because I do have it up, but I'm not going to, I don't even want to read, I don't even want to read through it like that. I'll summarize it, right? The Keeper Nagash. Kebra, or sometimes they put Kibra or BR Keeper Nagash. If we just Google it, it'll come up, it'll autocorrect. But now, when you look in the storyline, there's things that also jump out at you, right? One, it talks about Solomon tricking Sheba to now be his wife. He asked her to be his wife. She said no. Because like I said, I wanted to read. It's a whole like a long paragraph of things. I got it up. He asked her to be his wife. She said no. I got to go back to my own country, right? This is in their document. Then he said, okay, this is what I'll do. According to the law of the kings, if you come to my bed, then it's by right and law that you have to marry me, right? And in her mind, she's like, okay, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to marry. I'm not going to be with you. She goes to her own quarters where Solomon has set her up. Solomon goes and tells all of his cooks, take away her water. This is some crazy stuff, man. Take away her water. So she's going to have to come and ask for water. And because there's no water, when she comes and asks for water, tell the king has water in his quarters. And that she would now have to leave and come into your bedroom to get the water. So listen, I read this. I'm telling you, go online, go get the document. So it happens. This is according to their document. She's looking for water. She's parched. She can't find water. And then she gets up and she's running around asking for water. And they tell her the king got water. So then she goes into the room to get water and she drinks of the water. And he says, aha, you've entered into my bed. So now you must marry me. You made the agreement. And that's how King Solomon married Queen of Sheba, according to this document, right? Now, didn't stop there. It doesn't stop there. Now, after he impregnates her, she leaves, goes to Sheba, has the baby. Menelik is born. Now, after a while, he says, listen, you are Solomon's son. You need to go visit Solomon. So Menelik gets up, leaves, goes to Israel, and presents himself before Solomon. Solomon looks at him and says, oh, that's my son. He looks just like me, right? And he falls in love with Menelik, right? So now he wants Menelik to be his heir, his descendant on the throne. Menelik is, I can't do that, right? So he's like, listen, I got to go back home to my people and my land and so forth and so on. Then the next crazy thing happens is that people go and steal the Ark of the Covenant. And as he's leaving, the Ark of the Covenant leaves with Menelik and it goes back to Ethiopia. This is in the Keeper Nagash. This is where the Ethiopians concoct this story that they have the Ark of the Covenant hidden, I don't know, it's in a mountain or whatever the case may be. They have it because the Keeper Nagash says that the priest or someone gave him the Ark of the Covenant. And now the Ethiopians have it. Now we know when you go to the Apocrypha, 2 Maccabees chapter 2. 2 Maccabees chapter 2. Now let's watch this, because this is going to definitely defute these lies that they have in the documents. So 2 Maccabees chapter 2 is found in the Red Apocrypha, page 140.
Refute and diffuse.
Yes, diffuse. We're going to diffuse this light that they claim to come with this book or this document, I don't even know what is literature or whatever, but this is 2 Maccabees chapter 2 and verse 4.
Is the description Paul told Timothy right in between the tables?
Gun. Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Second Maccabees chapter 2 and verse 4. It says, it was also contained in the same writing that the prophet, being warned of God, commanded the tabernacle and the ark to go with him. And he went forth into the mountain where Moses climbed up and saw the heritage of God. And when Jeremy came thither, talking about Jeremiah the prophet, he found an hollow cave wherein he laid the tabernacle and the ark and the altar of incense, and so stopped the door. So now this is right before the Babylonian captivity would now take place. King Solomon had already died, right? During the times of Jeremiah. He had already reigned, Rehoboam, all of the kings that came in. They still had the Ark of the Covenant during Jeremiah's time, and Jeremiah was now told to go and hide the Ark of the Covenant, the altar of incense, and other things, because the heathen was now going to come in and destroy the place, right? So it says in verse 6, and some of those that followed him came to mark the way, but they could not find it, which when Jeremiah perceived, he blamed them, saying, as for that place, it shall be unknown until the time that God gather his people again together and receive them unto mercy. Then shall the Lord show them these things, and the glory of the Lord shall appear, and the cloud also, as it was showed under Moses, and as when Solomon desired that the place might be honorably sanctified, right? So the ark and all his other relics were hidden in the same mountain that Moses got up and died in, right? It's hidden in a place where nobody's going to find it. It's not going to come back and be revealed until the children of Israel are redeemed from the four corners of the earth, from their captivity, and placed back into their homeland. The Most High is going to do this. That's why it says, and a cloud is going to be there. The cloud is talking about the chariot, so the angels will be there when this time happens. It can't be that the Ethiopians would have had it, because Jeremiah still had it. How could it have gone to Ethiopia if it's still in the possession of the Israelites during the time of Jeremiah to put it in the mountain? Again, Isaiah 34:16. Seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read. If we deal with a lot of these other books and we take them to heart, your mind will get polluted, defiled, destroyed. Everything that you see out there, you have to precept it with the Bible. If it does not line up, it is garbage, right? It is garbage. Second Maccabees 2:4, I read down. Oh, Isaiah 34:16. Yahweh.
Not even 1948.
Say again?
So-called Jewish people.
What about 1948?
You know, when the so-called Jewish people went into the land of Israel, claiming to that they're the Jews. Not even that time.
Not even that time. Because they would have had it now. If they were the people, then the ark would have been revealed. Right? That shows you that they themselves are also imposters, along with the Ethiopians are imposters. They're not the real people. Now, this religion that Powell started was to now, because he was a part of the Garvey movement, Marcus Garvey movement. And what happens a lot of times is you'll see the same thing with the Black Panthers and other organizations, that they don't have the patience to wait upon the Most High, right? They don't have that desire to wait upon the Lord and allow the prophecies to fulfill themselves. They take matters upon their own hands and go do their own thing. So he said, you know what? I'm going to make this guy be the prince. I'm going to make him be the king. I'm going to make him be the Messiah, right? Because they coronated him in Ethiopia. And you'll see, you know, there's a whole coronation and things of that nature. There's also a picture. I'm not sure how it was, but there's a picture of him, Haile Selassie the first, bowing down to Queen Elizabeth, right? Yahweh Shine bowing down to nobody. It says every knee shall bow down to him. How is this guy bowing down not only to another person, but to an Edomite? And it makes sense because he went to the help and aid of the Edomites. He asked them for help. He didn't even go to the other dark nations. It would have made sense if he would have went to all the other doggone dark nations and say, hey, help me out. This guy tried to come and conquer me or fight and take my land. He went to the League of Nations, which is predominantly ruled or governed by Edomite nations. Cannot be it's so like when I was reading through this thing, there's so many bones and flaws in the storyline of the Keeper and the Gas that unfortunately our people hold near and dear to in order to substantiate the actual movement, right? The smoking of weed, the marijuana, ganja, right? You're supposed to smoke the go to Genesis, the ganja. Go to Genesis, right? You want to smoke the ganja.
The herbs, man.
Yeah.
It's the herbs.
Genesis chapter 1.
Who was it? I would like to think not know someone in the Joe Budden at the voiceover. Stephen Funny. I'm Joe Bird.
Oh yeah. I remember that. Genesis chapter 1, verse 29. It says, and God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, right? Herb. That's what they, said the marijuana, I'm going to buy and give me some herb. It says, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of the tree yielding seed. It shall be for meat. What does that mean when it says it shall be for meat? Huh? It's going to be for food, right? It's only something for you to consume in your body through your mouth, not to go and take it and burn it and smoke it into your doggone lungs in your body. No, right? Things were supposed to be made for food, medicinal, whether you ate it as it is or you made it as a tea, not to be smoked. I forget the verse where they took it. It says, when they look, it says, even Most High God smoked ganja, man, right? It's a verse where it says the Most High, right, he had smoke come out of his nostrils, right? And the context of the verse, I can't remember what it is. The context of the verse tells you that the Lord was angry with the children of Israel, as if like how you see in the cartoons when a person gets angry, you see someone snorts and grunts and the thing come out. They said that was the Most High. He smoked ganja, man. I was like, come on. They probably was. They probably were, right? But these things is supposed to be for meat, meaning food to eat or drink as a tea or some type of food that you put in your body.
And left with the elders had to be about the Uzziah, King Uzziah.
Uh-huh. We say?
Oh no, Uzziah, my bad. I'm thinking about the other scripture. 2 Samuel 6.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fun.
You got Amorites.
Right. So that's another good point Elder brought out, that when you see when the other nations did come near or acquired the Ark of the Covenant, they got immediately plagued and cursed to the point that they had to give it back with offerings. They had to give it back with gifts. So imagine if the Ethiopians would have now had or taken this. The Lord would have definitely done the same thing, jacked them up, so that they would have delivered it. But again, we just read in the prophecy or in the history that the Lord put it in the mount that Moses got up in and covered it and sealed it so that no one could follow us down. I'm pretty sure Esau probably read the scriptures, heard us teaching in the classes, and said, oh, it's in that mount. Oh man, we're gonna go find it, and they're gonna have sonars and all kind of things all around that mountain. You know how they go out and always like to excavate things. They're gonna have all things around that mountain to go try to find that ark. Ain't gonna work. And the Most High is stronger and more wiser than man can be as far as for trying to trick the Lord to go find his thing. Because I'm pretty sure they've done it and are doing it. Imagine if they found the actual Ark of the Covenant. Imagine that, right? Knowing that in Hebrews it says it's the 10 Commandments written with the finger of God inside it. The pot that had manna in it. Aaron's rod that he had back then. Man, you know what? Man, they probably split it all up. They would charge them $5,000 to come in the doggone thing just to see it. It'd be a tourist attraction, right? If you set up somewhere, you'd be spending high money, or they take it and put it somewhere thinking that they're gonna, worship it as now having power. Because sometimes the nations They like to have these things to draw energy for their own left-handed power, right? But it's all lies.
I go along with Steven Spielberg. You know, one of my favorite movies as a kid. You know, coming into the truth, realizing the facts and all that. I knew it was, you know, I knew it was fantasy anyway, but now I really see how much of the Raiders of the Lost Ark is a fantasy. And it goes right along with what you're saying as far as Esau, especially the other nation trying to get like these occult objects, trying to draw energy from them. That's what the whole the whole premise of Raiders of the Lost Ark is dealing with, right? Them trying to tap into that power that didn't belong to them. And then you got the history about them trying to get what they call the spear of destiny. It's supposed to be like the spear that put Christ's side. It's supposed to like found that and a cult power that was used to kill our Lord and Savior. There's other nonsense and confusion like that. Yeah, so Spielberg, you know, good job.
Okay. All right. So let's go back to 1 Kings chapter 10. Yeah, at verse 13, and we're going to continue on. I think it wraps itself up. So 1 Kings 10:13, and King Solomon gave unto the queen of Sheba all her desire, whatsoever she asked, beside that which Solomon gave her of his royal bounty. So she turned and went to her own country, she and her servants. So that means, and all her desires are the questions that she asked him, right? That's all that's talking about. The questions that she asked him. And then Solomon allowed her to return also with gifts. She gave Solomon gifts. Solomon gave her some gifts to return home with. Verse 14. Now the weight of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents of gold. Beside that he had of the merchantmen and of the traffic of the spice merchants and of all the kings of Arabia and of the governors of the country. So he had his yearly bounty was about 666 talents of gold. I'm like, so 666, right? 666. And he has some wicked gold, man. He has some evil gold. But it's just like Judas, right? You look at Judas in the New Testament, that name has a stain based on what he did to Yahushua. Everybody say, oh, he a Judas. You a traitor, right? That name has taken on a stain because of one person's action. Whereas you had a lot of other righteous men that had the same name, right? Judas Maccabees wouldn't be looked at as a traitor or someone who would now do things to harm his own people. But these are the things that happen. So when you read in Revelation, it talks about the number of the man, 600, and you're like, oh, that number is evil. So much so sometimes you see certain things on your phone and you're like, oh, it's 666. I don't want that. I don't want that. It's evil, right? So he had 600, 3 score, right? A score is 20. 3 times 20 is 60. 666 talents of gold that came along with all the other stuff that his merchantman was bringing back with his navy ships. Verse 16, and the king of Solomon made 200 targets of beaten gold, 600 shekels of gold that went to one target. And he made 300 shields of beaten gold. 3 pounds of gold went to one shield, and the king put them in the house of the forest of Lebanon, right? So he had specific things, these types of shields that was put into these different places and within his court, within his palaces. One was put there in the forest of Lebanon that we read last time. I think it's in chapters 7 and 8, where it talks about the house of the forest of Lebanon. And when you go into it, it's depicted that way because he got all these cedars, the cedars of Lebanon, and they made these different, stacked poles and things that now went throughout the court. It looked like a forest. Like when you go through a forest and there's all these tall trees, that's kind of what he was making with these types of structures of this house. All these long, tall beams that depicted that. Verse 18, moreover, the king made a great throne of ivory and overlaid it with the best gold. Man, imagine that. An ivory throne that was overlaid with gold, right? The value of that, just imagine the value of the throne. Ivory itself is precious, right? And then you put gold overlaid on the whole, oh man. It says, the throne had 6 steps, and the top of the throne was round behind, and there were stays on either side of the place of the seat. 2 lions stood beside the stays. So he had 2 placements there on his throne, and he had 2 lions on both sides, right? Now, again, most people get confused when you start talking about making making molten images of different things in the heaven above, on the earth beneath, or in the water under the earth. It's not talking about that you can't do them, as we see Solomon did, not only for his house and his throne, but for also the temple. You cannot bow down and worship them. So yes, you can have it in your house. You want to have a wolf because he's Benjamin. You want to have a wolf, you can have a wolf. But you can't wake up and then you come out your room and you look past and you see the wolf and you start doing certain things to it. You can't do that. I went to I never even noticed it. So I forget whatever that deity that the Thailand people, because I went to a Thai restaurant and they have a whole graven image of a monument in most all Thai restaurants. I never knew it, but it was a huge one. As you walk in, it's like right there.
The guy laying sideways like this.
No, it was one sitting there like his legs crossed, and it's just it's like a woman, and it's sitting there, and he has like a thing on his head and everything like that. So all the time I've gone to this restaurant, I never paid attention to the doggone thing sitting right there because I'm oblivious to it. But this day I go in, I'm sitting down, I'm by myself, I'm getting something to eat, and I see about 5, 6 people walk in. And as they walked in, each person walked in and went up to this thing and bowed down. And went and sat down. The next person came and bowed down. And I sat there, I was like, yo, what the hell? So then I'm like, yo, what the hell is this? Like, how did I not see this thing? I guess I just like blew it out of my mind. I'm like, yo, what the heck is they got this big thing sitting right in the middle of the restaurant as you walk in, and people are bowing down as they walk in. And I said, man. So that is what you cannot do. You cannot worship anything other than the Most High. That's why the Lord tells us in Deuteronomy, I think it's the 4th chapter, that he gave us no image nor similitude of himself when we came out of Egypt. For us to go and say, that's what the Most High looked like. So I can have him always in my heart. I'm going to make something that looks like him. No, that's what the nations do. And the nations don't even have a real God, so they just make up stuff. Whether it's a cat, you got the Egyptians worshiping cats at one time, along with other false gods. You got all these things. I think Elam and them worshiping elephants. So they got elephants on the table and mice. Some of them worship mice. All these strange, crazy things that they worship. And then you kind of look at the practices and the rituals that they do. And you say, what the hell is this? That's why the Lord said the gods of the nations is what?
Idols.
Idols. For the gods of the nations are idols. They just all man-made things that they have now made up their own rituals to worship. Whereas the Most High is a living power that we don't even see that he does these things for us as a nation and also to the other nations and also for the other nations. But we don't have anything that we are supposed to do to make to be in similitude to the Lord, to bow down. So what he's doing with these lions is all allowed. Yahweh Kanan and then on the shop.
He slumbers nor he sleeps. Like some of these idols, they just or slumber or they sleep, you know.
They don't even slumber or sleep. They have no breath.
Well, yeah, I mean,
They have nothing. Right? On the shop.
Well, I go to scriptures, 1 Corinthians 10:20.
Mm-hmm.
Reads,
Mm-hmm.
but I see that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils and not to God. I would not that he should have fellowship with devils.
Right.
So you know, like you said, if you worship, they don't have a real God. They just make this stuff up.
That verse is full because that's a good verse for that. But it's another good verse because sometimes our people, we believe that we're Gentiles. Right? We are taught that we're the Gentiles. So Paul says here that the things that the Gentiles sacrifice, they do it to devils. So if that's what Paul said the Gentiles do, and you're saying that you're a Gentile, make that make sense. Make that make sense. If you're saying that you're not a Jew, you're not Israel, but you are a Gentile, how is it that Paul wants us to separate from the Gentiles because what they sacrifice to and what they worship is wicked?
I went to send scripture to a pastor. He kept saying, I ain't an Israelite, I'm a Gentile. I read this scripture to him. He said, brother, you don't have to understand.
Oh,
So I said, okay, pastor, give me the
exactly.
He said, I have to check my notes.
Oh man, you don't have to understand it, but I don't understand it right now. But I'm gonna come back to you.
He said, I gotta look at my notes.
Yeah.
I looked at it.
All right. So that was 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 20. All right. So let's go back. We have 1 Kings chapter 10, and I left off at verse 19. Did I read 19?
Yes.
All right, come. Verse 20 now. And 12 lions stood there on the one side, and on the other upon the 6 steps. There was not the like made in any kingdom, right? So this goes into what Sheba saw. There was nothing like it that nobody else had. So not only he had the 2 lions on the stage, but as you go down the steps, there was 6 on each side that now ascended up to his throne. It says, and all King Solomon's drinking vessels were of gold, and all the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were of pure gold. None were of silver. It was nothing accounted of in the days of Solomon. Like, this was nothing. This was regular. Like, gold was so plenteous, as much as they was bringing in, everything was just being made of gold. So not only in his house, but also in the forest of the house of the forest of Lebanon, everything was gold. And it's specified, it says it was nothing silver. So don't think that Solomon had to dumb down and get a silver cup. No, the servant was drinking out of gold cups. Right. But everything that they had was gold. Right. When you looked at it, you ate off of it. Gold forks, gold knives, gold this, gold that. Right. It says, for the king had at sea a navy of Tarshish with the navy of Hiram. Once in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory, and apes and peacocks.
Now that you mentioned gold, I was watching this documentary on Donald Trump. Everything in his house is gold.
I'm thinking that.
Yeah.
Everything was gold.
Yeah.
You must have read this.
I want to be like this guy. When people come to my house, they want to say, yo, he's doing it on. I've never seen anything like it. The toilet is gold. The knobs is gold. Everything. The door is gold. Like everything. Imagine that. Right? But this Navy, it was coming every 3 years. That means that the Navy was going to far places because it's traveling. So when we start talking about peacocks and apes and things, it's probably not from that region. They were traveling to other quarters of the earth to go and explore and get these things. This is where sometimes people will say that Solomon and them went to places, probably even into the Americas, to come and get some of these animals and bring them back because of the long journey that they would travel to go to these places and get them and bring them back, right? We read in the scriptures about when the northern tribe came to the Americas and how the Most High held back the flood, and it took them how long to get there? A year and a half. Yeah, to come from where they went, come down all the way down around Africa, and then come over to the North, Central, and South America. They over there, right there in the Middle East. They can just travel right across. So they going there. I'm not saying that that's where they directly went, but I'm looking as far as for the different areas and places that with their Navy ships that they can go and get the merchandise and bring it back to Solomon. Because now you're talking about peacocks and apes, and you can go into other things that's not regional to Israel that they brought back, right? Because sometimes you hear about, you go to like the zoo or you go to certain places and they'll tell you like, yeah, this animal was not indigenous. They traveled over there and brought them back over here, and that's how we got this type of animal, right? A Siberian tiger. Yeah, you and doggone Philly seeing a Siberian tiger. Yeah, I mean, they went over to Siberia and took that tiger and brought him over here. And they probably made it to bring up their own. Y'all can understand that.
So I'm thinking about right here, just for a second, I'm thinking about the ivory. That would be like elephant tusk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking.
That was easy.
like island, like really elephant.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we just get that toss from the elephant.
Or it might be a good thing to see if that's the only place where iron comes from. Maybe somewhere else. Don't know. I'll be ignorant on that.
You know they shed them like deer's antlers too.
I'm not sure.
Because I know where he's getting at. Because with Esau, it's like, oh, are they poaching them?
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily.
Right. So yeah, it'd be a good thing to see if we were butchering them. Right. That's what they say. See this guy? Solomon was wicked, man. If he was stealing all that, no, you got to go do the research. Right. Okay. So now reading on in verse 23, coming down to the end. So King Solomon exceeded all the kings of the earth for riches and for wisdom. And all the earth sought to Solomon to hear his wisdom, which God had put in his heart. And they brought every man his present, vessels of silver and vessels of gold, and garments and armor and spices, horses and mules, a rate year by year. Now, reason why I said earlier that this is the closest representation to the kingdom before the kingdom, because how you read what they did with Solomon is going to be the same thing that's going to happen in the kingdom. All the other nations are going to be coming to Israel to hear of our wisdom, and then to do the same thing, bring their wealth and bring their prosperity in through the gates. It talks about that in Old Testament and in Revelations. The gates shall be open continually, and the nations shall be bringing their forces unto the nation of Israel. So this is the precursor to what's going to happen. All of this stuff that they're bringing Solomon, because he is now the Most High's king on the throne over his people. And they're doing this because there's nothing like it nowhere else. No other nation, no other king, no other place is like what the Lord set up Solomon to be. So that's what we're going to be. When Yahushua comes back, imagine how he's going to move. If Solomon was moving like this and they was in awe, listen, I'm going to be honest with you, we're going to be in awe. We're going to be looking and staring at Yahushua like, you see how he walk, you see how he talk, you see his mannerism. We're going to be sitting at the table eating. We're like, y'all want to see how Yahushua eat? I want to eat like Yahushua. I'm going to see how many drinks Yahushua had. You're going to be wanting to model, be like an example to him. Right? So not just so much just us, but even some of those who have been those righteous predecessors. Man, I mean, I'm telling you right now, I know Most High's will I make it. I'm not caring about the gold. I ain't caring about the mules or the silver. Though I ain't caring about the wine. I ain't caring about nothing. I'm just like to be in the presence of Yahushua. That's it. I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. Mm-hmm.
Just there and look.
Yeah. Say, Samat, need you to go do. All right, Kun. My name probably gonna be Samat. It'll be something else. Kun. And it'll be a strong Kun too. Kun. Let's read on. So it says in verse 26, and Solomon gathered together chariots and horsemen, and he had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horsemen, whom he bestowed in the cities for chariots, and with the king at Jerusalem. Right. So he had a strong stable of different horses and horsemen, along with the horses that was brought back from their travels. Verse 27. Here's a good one. And the king made silver to be in Jerusalem as stones, and cedar made he to be as the sycamore trees that are in the vale for abundance. So I know Manashah is a person who's like a collector. He gets the gold, gets silver, and things like that, and acquire them over time. But that takes time, and it takes some money, and it takes some saving to go and purchase these things. But for Israel at that time, silver was in the streets like rocks. You walking down the street and picking up rocks, throwing them, playing hand, you picking it, you stumble on a rock. That's like silver all in the streets. Imagine that. That's how wealthy we were as a people under a righteous king. To make it so that silver would be like stones within the cities, within our places. And that's on a whole other level. Right? So we can understand why gold was so prevalent, because the next thing, silver, man, everybody had that. Everybody had that, man. Everybody was going into the places to eating, like, yo, slamming down a whole bunch of money. We all eating. Rounds for everybody. Rounds of yah for everybody. Brother, I already did that. I already did that for my silver, right? That's how great and joyous it's going to be for us, man. To see something like that or to hear and read about it, it brings, it brings your heart, based on a lot of the despair that we see with the struggles of our people today. We was reading about this in the class. As far as for our time and our struggles right now is like a little chastisement. When you read things like this, it gives you hope, right? Romans 15, it gives you hope to see and wait for these things to transpire. Because everything that the Most High has already said has come to pass and is still coming to pass. So when you see this and you say the Lord is going to do the same thing and even more in the kingdom, I want to be there for this one. I want to see this. Y'all can
Platinum, man. I got a platinum.
Yeah, platinum. Yeah, platinum. Platinum, although it is a metal, it's still not as valuable as gold, right? One thing you learn as far as for the different measurements and weight of the different metals, to make a gold chain or a gold bracelet, gold is a soft metal. So they don't always have, you're not going to have like 100% of the gold inside of a chain because it's soft. They need something else, some type of other metal to now have that construct of what it is trying to design. And then they'll overlay all that with gold. So you'll get the certain measurements of gold, whether it's 18, 24, 10, it goes into how much is in it. With platinum, you can have like 90% of platinum, 95%, all of it could be that metal. And then the value of all of that now increases it. But now if you had 90% of platinum and 90% of gold, this is going to be way valued more than that, right? Because there's more of it inside those different things that they're making. So that it's an illusion to the people because they put the price and you're thinking that, oh, is that value? I mean, the value is the value, but it's not better, it's not more valuable than gold at the same measurement and weight. That's the difference, right? If you go to you can look it up, or you go to like a jeweler, a fair jeweler, someone's going to be honest with you, right? They'll tell you or let you know how that works. Then you can start getting into gems and rubies, and certain jewelers will tell you, the rubies are more valuable than diamonds, right? You have the rarest of rubies and the rarest of diamond. The ruby is more valuable than the diamond. Like, but sometimes they try to deceive us and they're giving us fake stuff and things of that nature because we're ignorant, we don't know better. Exactly. They do. And you can't, that's what I said, because of our ignorance, you won't know. And they're the gatekeepers. They're the gatekeepers for all that stuff. Right? What's that movie with Uncut Gems? That's what the movie's, yeah, with the comedian dude, right? And in New York, was it Sidler? His name?
Sandler and
yeah, Sandler. Right, he's in it. But it's supposed to be a movie about him being a Jew. But then when you look at all of them, all the same people, you're all in the same damn people, man. Whether it's Esau or Elam. Most of them is Amalek. Right? Amalek are the gatekeepers for the trading of gems. Yeah, globally.
It's just probably a spot in New York, right? That's like known for that. I know here in Philly,
yeah.
In Philly, they always say Robin's Gate. He said commercial radio. Robin's Gate, Walnut Beer.
Yeah, New York is a whole area. Yep.
Some of the expensive stores, like really expensive stuff in there.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's finish out. Verse 28 now. It says, and Solomon had horses brought out of Egypt and linen yarn. The king's merchants received the linen yarn at a price. So now you got even special types of yarn or materials that only come from certain regions. It's like what's that movie with with the Egyptian cotton?
Oh.
I forget. He was like, yeah, this is Egyptian cotton, man. You don't know. Pipo Hernandez. Shab, yes, it's Shab. He's like, yeah, this is Egyptian cotton. This ain't like the regular cotton, right? Which is true. You can get certain materials from certain places because it's rare. You can get cotton from over there in Saudi Arabia or somewhere else, but he's like, nah, they're getting that real deal stuff from out of Egypt.
It's the same cotton, just different region.
But it's different when it's as far as for the rarity. Some of it is outside of process, I would say where it actually comes from because it's all material. So certain areas have probably same thing with gold. The gold of Ophir, who would say it's all gold, But nah, that gold is more precious than the gold over there, right? You trying to get it out of the mountain, or you're getting over here and you're going into the cave and you're getting it. But what's over here, for whatever reason, is more valuable than anywhere else.
So
Right.
that's something with the soil too, right?
Probably has to do from the environment or where it comes from.
I mean,
The
I
soil
mean,
that
it says more valuable, it's just like they created this illuma around it, so you can charge them more money. It's a marketing strategy, especially if it's not known. If it is not known for that particular thing, and they find it over there. Oh, this is rare. We rarely find it.
So it comes up like sometime when I used to talk with Elam, right? I had a conversation with this Elamite woman work with me, and she was talking about gold. You got like Spanish gold, you got Indian gold. And she was like, they all different. You can tell when you look at the gold that is different. So now when you're going into base like apples, if an apple grows over here and an apple goes over in China, it's all apples, but they're different. So now based on the variety of it and the rarity of it, supply and demand, you're going to say, okay, listen, that one is going to be of more valuable because it's not accessible.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the way it looks because it looks
Yeah.
different than all the other gold, and it's been identified as real gold.
And it's maybe rare.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think it might be a combination of both. Could
Gun.
where it may come from, maybe the pressure, like the geology, and
All of that. Kind of all of that.
going to it actually having more value, and then the embellishment comes on top of it. It's like, oh, it's really this is valuable.
Right.
Or so it's a combination.
But with us, that's why the Lord has it in the law that we have to deal with a just weight and balance, right? So we're not gonna be able to go and embellish and say, yo, my goal over here is more. No, you're not doing it. You got to be honest with whatever it is you have. You're gonna say this is what this is, but that one, no, that's what that is, right? We have to be honest and judicious with how we deal with each other. The nations don't do that. The nations that have man-made stuff and say it's the real deal, and you thinking you're getting the real deal, and you get something that is worth a fraction of the cost, and you're paying 10 times more than what you should pay.
It's like gold they found in the mountain and go there and dug up in the bottom of the ocean. Like, yo, you know how much time and resources it took to dig this gold, so this is why it's worth this much.
Of course.
So that's what it is. It's all about. If it's easy access to get it,
exactly, and it's in the surplus. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just saying, all the things is
But
it's the nature, and again, it's the nurture we're talking about, but also the nature too.
All right, so we read the last verse after we got this people Fernandez in the yard.
That's like brown face. But he was doing that role. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah. Verse 29, it says, and the chariot came up and went out of Egypt for 600 shekels of silver, and a horse for 150. And so for all the kings of the Hittites and for the kings of Syria, did they bring them out by their means, right? So again, during this time, Solomon had access and was a recipient, and the people, not only just Solomon, but Israel, we were a recipient of all of this, the forces of the nations that was coming in, and not just diamonds and gold, but animals and incense and spices and materials and garments and all kind of things was coming in surplus. Again, we're going to go back to that in the kingdom, but on a higher level, because all of us as a people will be on the same mind state, right? It won't be that there'll be any sin or deception amongst us. We be all in perfect harmony with the Most High's commandments, and then we will see those benefits. All right, so I know that was long. We deviated a bit here and there, maybe a lot. Samak talks a lot. Next week, this is not the one. Next week, we will be in Hebrews chapters 5 and 6. So next week, Hebrews chapter 5 and 6. And then also just keep in mind the following Sunday, not this Sunday, the following week Sunday will be the new moon. So the 12th, right? So November 12th at sundown will be the new moon that we will be having a service and a worship to the Most High for that day. So as a reminder, Samak wrote out a lot of things. Most High's will, you wrote down things that was too confusing, or I didn't make it clear, or I was, rambling on or talk too fast, write it down, or the verse, or at least try to get to something so that we can recall it either in the Tuesday or the Friday class. Also, try to make sure that, we keep fasting in our, daily life, right? We just had the Day of Atonement, previous the 7th month. And again, it should not be a one-time thing. If you can do it once a week, that's Tawab. If you can do it once a month, that's Tawab. If you can do it once every 3 months, that's Tawab. But try to get yourselves in practice of trying to fast often. Sometimes I in my travels, I kind of slip up and forget to try to set it aside or pick a day that I can go and do fast. And then in your fast, you just don't want to fast. You want to fast for a purpose. Right, so just in mind, you want to fast and then fast for or with a purpose in mind, whether it's for spirituality, whether it's for health, whether you're fasting for someone. Sometimes you can fast for somebody else. It don't even have to be for you, right? You are now giving yourselves up, giving up your carnal meals and your food and your endeavors for someone else because they may be going through certain things. And the prayers of a righteous man availeth much. Right, so you might want to do that, but just to keep in mind as a gem and a tidbit, try to fast often to remove those spirits, to increase in knowledge, or to allow the Most High to be merciful unto yourself or others because they're trying to overcome or acquire certain things. All right. So in always, we're gonna put up. I didn't even put up the chapters. We're gonna put up the information for those who want or have, if this is the first time watching and you want to participate in Tuesday night or the Friday night class. This is a teleconference line where we have a teleconference line on right now. If you want to dial in through phone, the dial number that's on the banner right now, 667-770-1085, and then the code is 521-455 with a pound. We also do it over Zoom. So also located there is the link for the Zoom, profitabletalks.com. And that's also on Tuesdays or Friday nights. It's either or, right? If you want to log in through Profitable Talks, you do that. If you want to log in to the teleconference line, we try to make sure that we have both up and available. Subsequently, if you want to make any donations, offerings, tithes to HYK, it's true. I had a discussion with my brother earlier today about tithes, right? And he was talking about, sometimes people misquote in Timothy's, the 6th chapter, it talks about for the love or for the lust of money is the root of all evil. People just say money is the root of all evil, right? Money is the root of, no, it's not that money is the root of all evil. The love of the lust of money, the things that you would do for it is the root of evil. Because you will murder, you will steal, you will rape, you will rob, you do all kind of things for the desires to covet that money. But in this case, when you donate and you give your offerings, your tithes, or what have you to the school, it's not going to Kahan Samak. It's not going to Kahan Nabiyah. It's not going to elders. It's going to the upkeep of this congregation, meaning the payment of the rent, the internet, the electricity, the heat, air, right? All of these things are still have to be accounted for. So that's what our donations go to. That's what these things go to. I have to have my own job to provide for my own family and provide as well. So if anyone thinks that, just like you was going to Beth Israel Baptist Church or some other church, that they also have a pastor's fund and they pay for the pastor so he don't have to work and they want to make sure he got a good car. No, that's off. That's wicked, right? That money should be going to the sanctuary for the upkeep of the congregation. Flyers, different things that we may need to keep things going. Something break down, you got to go and get a new thing. That's what that's going to be used for. So you can make your donations, check a money order to the name on the ticker along with the address, or you can make it online to paypal.me/HYK12 as far as for a PayPal donation, or if you have Cash App, you can do $HaKanas. That's a capital H and a capital K. $HaKanas for Cash App. All right. If you have any questions on any of those things that was just mentioned, please make sure to hit us up, hit me up, or anybody in the chat group, and we'll provide more edification. Yawakanan.
Oh yeah, no, I said Hanukkah is on December the 6th service and December the 13th, right?
Khan.
And the new moon, the 10th new moon, the 12th.
Khan. All right. So with that, we'll say Shah Shabbat. Give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High in Christ for the knowledge, wisdom, understanding, for the opportunity to come and break bread together spiritually, to go down to the depths of the Bible, and to bring out these precepts for our edification that we also can share with others, if so be. All right. So the water to all the brothers and sisters that labored through how long? Almost 3.5 hours. I thought it was a couple short chapters, but spirit leads where the spirit leads. So again, again, most high's will, everybody enjoys the remaining of their Sabbath day. Keep pushing, stay strong, stay in prayer, stay disciplined, and most high's will will see or hear each other during the Tuesday night class upcoming. Yeah. All right. So with that, stay tuned for the closing prayers. Barak Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Afuran, Nawa, Par Yahdapan, Wara Aman, La Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Af Yasha'ala. Again, the English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai with Israel. And Madwa Panua Jerusalem stand and face Jerusalem. Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Babakushai, Shemai, Lanawa, Aitha, Yum Yun, Aitha, Shalak, Mayaka Allah, Wahalahayim, Tazudakim, La, Shemal Ayam, Barak, Rapah, Magun, Wahakaziyak, Banya, Yasha Allah, Washalak, Lanawa, Rabium, Kakama, Rabium, Na'ai, Rabium, Bayana, Rabium, Sabalonwa, Rabium, Amawan, Rabium, Aqua, Rabium, Ahabium, Rabium, Magana, Rochanaya, Wasalat, Ko, Kata Yamnawa, Laha'akim, Wa'akiwa, Yasha'ala, Thumyad, Wa'iwalam, Bahasham, Yahawasha, Thawada, Aman. Again, English translation. Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai, or the Most High in the name of Christ, pleases unto us now, right now, send Michael the righteous powers or angels to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel, and send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection, and forgive all our sins for the brothers and sisters in Israel, always and forever. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you. So be it. Four corners prayer. Yahweh,
Yahweh,
Bahasham,
Bahasham,
Yahweh Shai,
Yahushua,
Barak Noah,
Barak Noah,
Royasha Allah,
Yasharallah,
Wabat Yasaparim,
Batia Safaria,
Shema Yasharallah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. Right, English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, bless us and Israel and the house of books, known as the schools, and Deuteronomy 6:4, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our power is one power. And again, with that, say shalom, peace and blessings to all the brothers and sisters. And again, Shah Shabbat, happy Sabbath. Shalom.
Shalom.